Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. However you happen to be watching and or listening to this, I want to welcome you to a new episode of the Gaming Circle podcast. The podcast where, it seems like we're missing a co-host, but it's for a good reason. We'll get started. But you know what? Let me first and foremost introduce my impromptu co-host who happens to also be the guest today. Now, you know this man in this community if you've been watching this show because he's been around for a while. His show has been around for a while. And this show, the Gaming Circle podcast, is going to do our best and right a wrong that we have had on the show for quite some time. Now, he has had me on his show, and I, much like as you folks know in the community, I'm an avid watcher of these shows, of these podcasts. So whether I am in your chat or I'm on your show, I'm just a fan. And I've been in this man's chat room for a long time, even before I even picked up the mic and started talking myself. You see the man's name on the side here from the Shop Podcast, one of the stalwarts of this gaming community, Mr. PTK Blam joins us this morning. Good morning, sir. And actually, really good morning, sir, because you're 2 hours behind me.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you for being here, man. Welcome. How you doing this morning?
I'm phenomenal, man. Just shout outs for you for you and Everborn. I know he'll be here, fashionably late as usual, but I'm awesome. I'm awesome, bro. Thank you for having me on. First and foremost, this is a phenomenal show. So everybody in chat, you guys know what to do. Show some love, but I'm happy to be here. It is a bit early, 8 a.m. my time, but man, I couldn't miss this. And this is something, like I said, I want to do a little bit more throughout the year. And I'm glad you're the first show that I was able to come on in 2023. So I appreciate you, Everborn, man. Happy for all of the topics. We got a lot to talk about this week. It's been a phenomenal week. So I cannot wait, bro. I'm ready to jump in.
Thank you so much. Well, and you're not the only one who's excited because there's a lot of folks in the chat as well. Some returning faces that I know you know because they're part of your gaming community as well. And I appreciate you guys all for being here. Oh, and as I'm sure you might know, the slander starts early here with us on the Gaming Circle podcast. And of course, Slow Mo Backslap is not late. He is here already, and he's already being slanderous. But you know what? Let me first and foremost get everybody, get people acclimated, let people know what's going on. EverbornSaga is supposed to be here, of course. I reached out to him a minute before the show started, and basically the man is having PC issues. Yes, the potato finally gave up the ghost, ladies and gentlemen. For those who haven't watched a couple of weeks ago, he has a beautiful Alienware machine that looks amazing on the outside, but has weird parts on the inside. It is what it is. And this morning, he thinks his RAM is having issues, so he's resolving that, and he will join us momentarily. So we will get him in momentarily. I'm sure he'll show up any minute now. But you know what? Before we get into all that we're getting on into, I will first and foremost test. Tisk, 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 says all. Yeah, okay. All right. Let us transition. We're going to start where we're going to start. But before we do, let me first and foremost say thank you guys all so much for the continued support. Hit the like button if you haven't done so already. Consider subscribing if you haven't subscribed to the show already before. Yes. Reggie Lee is already clowning Alienware on this show. Yes,
I see.
We're not going to turn into a TCS situation. Shout out to the IOP.
Right?
But it's okay. But okay. So we're going to get into it. But I kind of want to start with the games that we have been playing. I will start with you, PTK, since you are the guest here. Hit me off with some of the games that you have been playing. I know that we're going to talk about. What do you call it? Hi-Fi Rush, because I know that's on.
Sure.
Everybody's playing it right now. But besides Hi-Fi Rush, what games have you been playing, sir? While we have some Hi-Fi Rush gameplay, you go ahead and tell me what you got there, and we'll get started. What's new on your radar, sir?
So when I have the opportunity to play games, man, I'm an oldie but goodie. You know, I play a lot of the games that I've been playing for years now, just because it's part of my routine at this point. So I'm always jumping back in Division 2, doing regular random quests and things like that, doing the dailies, all that kind of stuff.
There are those who have games they are married to versus games that they just kind of play around with.
Right?
Like for some of y'all, specifically people who play the Division, you guys are like married to that game.
Yeah.
Like for real. You, Fuzzy Belvedere, I hear you guys talking about it pretty often. Go ahead.
Yeah.
What do you like so much? What keeps you guys coming back year after year after the game has lost its shine? All of that. Like, what keeps you guys coming back?
Ignorance keeps us coming back. Ignorance, because the hope that I'll turn that game on one day and there'll be a massive update with everything that I've ever asked for. That's what keeps me and Fuzz pushing to play the game. Yeah, no, in reality though, the game is amazingly fun. I mean, I'm sure everybody's probably played or at least tried it by now, but it's that's the game that Ubisoft has been trying to make since that game.
Interesting.
So and it annoys me that's the state of the game at this point. But that's part of the reason why me and Fuzz jump in. We don't want it to die as well. Like, there's this thing. Like, I enjoyed Anthem. I'm one of the few who actually.
So are you guys like on a mission to save this game from obscurity?
Yeah, I have like PTSD in a way, right? Like, I just want the game to stay around long enough for them to say, "Oh, this we've always had this game. Let's go ahead and actually do something with it." So part of that is me just hoping that Ubisoft realizes one day that they have a game that they can build around already. They don't need to go throw stuff at the wall and hope that it works. So there's that. Obviously, Destiny 2. Obviously, that's another one. I mean, maybe I don't want to go that route, but that's another marriage that I'm part of as well. So there's that. Those two games. Obviously, Diablo 3. I'm still jumping into that. I'm still fairly new, but I want to get into that as much as I can before Diablo 4 comes out. I'm really heavily invested in these dungeon crawler RPGs now. It's Game Pass. It's Game Pass fault.
Interesting.
Those are games I didn't play at all. Just a year and a half, 2 years ago, I didn't touch those games.
But Game Pass got you in, and now you're all Game Passed out,
bro. I'm hooked, man. I can't. All these dungeon crawlers. I play. I downloaded a bunch of what are those other kind of games as well too? Roguelike games. I'm sorry, the roguelike games as well. I'm super into those now. I never played those previously, so I jump in Gunfire Reborn still here and there.
Yeah. People are really big into that Gunfire Reborn, huh?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's a great game. Something I can jump into with my life and my schedule. I can play 30 minutes and not feel like I wasted my time. So let me ask you about this, about a game like Gunfire. And by the way, EverbornSaga is in the spot. Let me get him in here real quick. But before we let me ask you about Gunfire, because Gunfire is one of those games that where you have to pause, where you can't pause.
And you're a
Yeah,
man
you
with
can't.
kids. How do you do that? Like I'm a man who's trying to find a way of playing these unpausable games, and you seem to have found the solution, sir. How do you do that?
Will they grow up? That's my solution. So my kids aren't kids.
So there goes
they're
that for
19 and
me.
18.
There goes
Yeah,
that for me.
so,
Forget about it.
Yeah. You got a little bit of time.
You gotta just deal
wait.
with it until they grow up.
You gotta deal with
Understood.
it until they get old enough. So they're 18 and 19.
So ladies and gentlemen, before we get into this, like we may have to glitch the show a little bit because Everborn, of course, was fashionably late for reasons, and now I got to get him in here. But in doing so, we may glitch our camera setup. It is what it is. You guys are gonna have to deal with it. I tried to solve it before, but of course we're live, so we're doing it live. Damn it, and we might as well do it early. And shout out to YouTube. I hope me saying the D word is not demonetization. These days they're very militant about the words we get to use.
YouTube van pulling up in front of the house. Huh?
You know, I don't want the men in black with YouTube logos on me. But all right, let's transition to the third. I will warn y'all that it'll look grimy until I fix it, but deal with it. It is what it is. Here we go. So here we go. Mr. EverbornSaga, I will bring you in here.
Yeah.
There he is.
Wild.
Yes, it does, because you chose, sir.
Okay. How about
Welcome,
this?
sir. I'm listening.
If you were paying attention to the private chat, you would know that I was actually backstage while the opening theme was running, so you could have gotten me in. And you know what? Check the timestamp on my message, sir.
Mr. PTK Blam, thank you for being here, and you can now hear and see the slander that is EverbornSaga directly. Thank you. Welcome, Everborn. How you doing, sir?
On time and ready to grind.
Of course you were. Yes.
I don't know if that deserves a pause, but we'll allow it today.
Yeah, we'll let that one slide.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us. It's been too long since I've been on the Shop podcast. I know you had reached out to me the other day. I don't think I had got back to you, so I apologize for that. Time is not my friend these days, but I'm working.
Time is a flat circle. It's okay. It's right? Okay. Appreciate you for being here, man. You know, I'm happy you've resolved your potato issues.
No. I had to take out the new memory that I just bought.
Oh, still potato issues. I understand. We'll solve it. We'll get into it, brother. We'll get into it. But PTK,
you know what's gonna happen? I'm going to Micro Center after we're done with the show.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna go buy a new ATX case. And I'm gonna buy a new motherboard. And I'm gonna move everything over. And I bet you the old memory
flake
works.
out as well. You bet the old memory works? Yeah. Might as well.
You know what? Since I have 2 sets of 64 gigs of memory.
Maybe it's time to build a new machine.
128. Why not?
Listen to this man. Now he's trying to go over and beyond. How about you get yourself
compensate?
How about you get yourself a motherboard that actually works first? How about you stop yourself? First and foremost, get yourself a motherboard that's not made by Dell. But that's neither here nor there. Let's rein this back in.
I'm gonna end up with like a 4090 by the end of the day.
And if you do, you'll be ridiculous because that is just uncalled for, sir. That's uncalled for. I don't think you have that much money hanging around. I'm just saying. I'm not pocket watching, but I don't think you just have that much to drop the worth of a whole PC on just a video card. But that's neither here nor there.
I feel like I spent that much on replacing memory that didn't need to be replaced, but that's neither here nor there.
How much did your memory cost? See, now we're derailing. How much did your memory cost? Calm down, man.
That's important. Let's go. I have a lot of memory sticks here that were not the problem.
Yeah, you know what the problem was, all right, between the keyboard and the seat. Mr. PTK Blam, sir.
The beauty of PC gaming, people.
So is this why PTK? Is this why you only play on console, or are you a PC gamer as well?
No, I'm strictly console, man.
Because you're trying to.
The biggest thing for me.
I knew you had some culture in you.
Oh my gosh! Here we go.
I don't do the PC thing.
Okay. Well, you know what? Before we get back to our conversation, we clearly need to take a breather. Because these people are getting slanders already this morning. So I will already take a moment and thank everybody that's in here. You know, it's Timmy's in here, Mr. Joanna Dark. Actually, Mr. Joanna Dark was the first to drop a super chat of the day. And he says, good morning for a $5 super chat. He says, good morning, gentlemen. Awesome guest. Everborn, Hi-Fi Rush already bested Sonic Adventure in sales and engagement.
Watch your mouth, sir.
And by the way, Perfect Dark is better than GoldenEye. Thoughts?
Well, hold on. Did he say that? Did he say Perfect Dark is better than GoldenEye?
Yes, he is. He said no. That's what he said. He said Perfect Dark.
Then he would say
better
that.
GoldenEye.
Now the thing is this. Even Phil Spencer, and I don't know if we're talking about that interview.
We're gonna get into all of that. We're gonna get into all of that. Yes.
Phil Spencer said he was excited about this game because they tried to get Jet Set Radio Future in back compat.
Bro, we're gonna. The minute he did that, when he made that reference to that game, I jumped out of my seat, sir. I
said Sega purchase confirmed.
I jumped out of my seat, sir, because that's the only game that I have wanted for as long as I wanted. And people who know me know that I've been emulating that game on here because I've shown y'all on multiple occasions me playing Jet Set Future on the Steam Deck. And what does Phil Spencer call on? Jet Set Future. But okay.
And also, just one thing. People are comparing this to that. It's not the same kind of game, but visually or aesthetically, you get... it reminds you of that and Sunset Overdrive.
Absolutely.
And when people say that, they're not saying that it's the same kind of game. It's just saying you have these visual homages to it. But let me know when I can talk about this game because
we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. But before we do, let me also finish with the super chats and shout out to the man Gerald Mack who says, well, with a $2 super chat, he says, shout out to the Gaming Circle podcast. Salute. Shout out to our marketing manager, sir, Mr. Gerald Mack. Between Gerald Mack and Sith Lord, we have all the marketing we need for this show. They're always out there promoting it, letting folks know we out here. We appreciate you, sir. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the super chat. We thank you. So, okay. PTK, we were talking to you about the various games you play and how you've become a grazer. Shout out to Pong Soul.
Yeah, shout out to Pong. Yeah,
you've become a grazer. So you've been playing a lot of the RPGs. You've been playing a lot of the roguelites. I'm a big roguelite person. That's catnip for me. I've been playing roguelites for a long time. So in this while we're playing what we've been playing section, like in 2022, before all the 2022 and 2023, before all the the madness that has happened, you pay attention as much as we do. What is your grade for what games have been on Xbox? I mean, on Xbox to a larger extent than maybe Game Pass, if that's your main bread and butter with it. Like, have you enjoyed your time with Xbox this year or last year, or are you like most that say, come on now, this year has to be the year?
No, I enjoy my time. I enjoy my time with the games. I'm not as critical as a lot of other people with these games, man. Like, you know what I mean? I'm a little bit more loose, you know what I mean, when it comes to criticism regarding like my play time. I enjoy playing, and obviously, as you can see, I play a lot of games that have been out for a long time. It's not like I'm playing a bunch of new stuff all the time. Yeah. I do the Game Pass, and it has turned me into a grazer, like you said. Shout out Pong, but. So a lot of games I play have already been out. So I enjoy what I play. I don't play what I don't like to play. I do try things. And to be honest with you, like I said, Game Pass has allowed me and opened me up to new things like the roguelikes, like the RPGs games I never touched, dungeon crawlers, things like that. I would never play Diablo or anything like that, or even be interested in Diablo if it wasn't for something like a Torchlight 3 or something like that that dropped in the Game Pass.
See, he mentioned the game and then mentioned a classic, Torchlight 3, classic.
Blam, it sounds like you actually like to play games instead of complaining about them.
Go figure,
What
a
novel idea.
Go figure. Amazing. The man likes to play these games.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thunk it, as they say. That's great. That's great.
I mean, you're not going to get the critical answers that, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not as critical as a lot of people, man. I play what I enjoy. I enjoy, my time. There's a lot of new things that have coming out that I'm interested in. That I played last year as well. A lot of stuff that I played maybe once or twice and haven't picked back up. But I would say if I had to give them a grade, because they did miss the two big first party stuff, they're a little light on first party. I'd probably give them a B for last year, B plus.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not a bad grade. That's not a bad grade. B plus is pretty solid score, right?
All right. So here's the thing.
Go ahead, boy.
I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. And from a first party standpoint, I think that they get like a C minus or a D. Because
that's fine. Yeah.
And again, this is not about not having anything to play. I still have a backlog from last year. So there was a ton to play, but just judging them on first party output alone, you got Pentiment, and you got
lacking for sure.
You got Grounded, which you already had, right? So they had again, what do you call it? Was very good. It surprised me, As Dusk Falls, but again, those are more like icing on the cake. And I feel like there was no cake.
There was no cake this year. Yes,
last year. However, as the year ended, right? Because I do feel like they have turned it around so far successfully, right? So when you think about this, right, and even starting in October, right?
That's when the turn started for me, to be honest with you, Everborn. October kind of is the month that I would look to as well.
Right, because in October you got Plague's Tale in Game Pass, right?
So to add to your conversation real quick, I have Mr. Slow-Mo Backslap in the chat saying we're giving them 85 points just for writing their name.
No, but this is what I'm saying. Like, that's why it's a C- or a D for me, right? And
is that overall or first party?
I'm talking about first party.
Oh, okay.
First party, right? But if we're going first party, like in December, well, I don't want to say first party, but like exclusive wise, in December we did get High on Life, which I thought was amazing, and now we got this, which is like, I think people are going to be talking about this game for a little. I think this game is going to become a cult classic.
Yeah, they have something. They have something.
And so, but now, when we talked about things starting from October, Plague's Tale, Game Pass, October, December, like we said, High on Life, January, Monster Hunter Rise, and then this surprise drops. We have Atomic Heart coming in February. In March, we have Wulong and whatever else. In April, we have Minecraft Legends, which looks very interesting. In May, we have Redfall. And we'll see what June brings. And we don't know the Starfield date yet. I also am not on the train of people crying about the Forza.
Would you stop? Would you stop like blowing your load? Pause before we get into it.
Oh no! This is nothing. This is just foreplay, sir.
This is foreplay.
All I'm saying is, like, right now, if they need to keep up what they have going right now, if they can sustain this feeling of every month you have newsworthy, high profile, this level of releases, right? Because I think even though Atomic Heart is not an exclusive or first party, it being in Game Pass is a big deal. So I think they're delivering in spades right now, and it started in October.
So okay. So I just put I put a poll in the chat. Join the conversation. What is your overall grade of Xbox this last year for 2022?
D.
Well, overall grade. I mean, for first party, second party, and third party combined, right? Not just the first party, not the whole deal.
Here's the
problem.
Hold on.
Let me finish. Let me finish.
Okay.
Let's put that in the chat, in the poll. There's a poll in the chat. Please, respond to that, and I'll let you respond. But real quick, Mr. Joanna Dark is slanderous this morning. We appreciate him for being here with another $5 super chat saying, Everborn, please do not get a 4090 and waste its power on just bad Sonic games. Maybe this is why your memory.
Exactly what I would do.
Maybe this is why your memory went bad. / Mario is better than Sonic.
Messy. That's blasphemous, by the way. But
go ahead, Everborn. Continue your point.
We could say Mario's, you know what, I'm not even going to do it. But the point is, I really feel like Xbox is in a very good place right now. I just think, I think Hi-Fi Rush set the tone. But can we just talk about Hi-Fi Rush for a minute?
Okay. So I wanted to put Hi-Fi Rush at the end because I know I've been playing Hi-Fi Rush, as you see on your screen, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I know that Mr. PTK Blam has also been playing Hi-Fi Rush. Yep. I didn't even ask him. I know because the man's a gamer. There's receipts is out here. He's been playing Hi-Fi Rush. I know Mr. EverbornSaga has been playing Hi-Fi Rush because my phone won't stop binging me at 4 a.m. when a man signs into Xbox Game Pass. That's neither here nor there. Let us talk about Hi-Fi Rush. PTK Blam, you are first on the docket, sir. You've played it. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on how this was presented to you? It showed up out of nowhere. Not only was it officially announced at the direct, which we'll talk about soon, but then they also not only did they release it right then and there that you could play right from jump. Was the strategy successful? Is the game great? Is the game good? Is it not your thing? What are your thoughts, sir?
So first and foremost, the strategy was amazingly successful, as you can see by the response right after they announced it, right? There was this avalanche of people like, really? It's out now? Like running to their phones, turning on their consoles to hurry up and download it. Mm-hmm. Not only that, we don't get shadow drops very often. It was very old school. Gave me a whole lot of nostalgia. We don't get these shadow drops. And this is something, especially coming from a team like Tango, is completely left field. I would have never expected. I was so set on thinking that he was going to say we're working on Evil Within 3.
They might still be.
They probably still are. Yeah.
But I seriously thought that's what he was going to say, because I saw the studio lead kind of setting up a one more thing kind of conversation. Mm-hmm. You know, he's kind of setting up for that. I thought it was going to be, okay, here it comes, Evil Within 3. We're working on it, whatever. But this is even better because it's a brand new IP. The game is so nostalgic, yet brand new. And what I appreciate about the game, it doesn't take itself seriously. And all the game is about is having fun. Mm-hmm. It doesn't, it's not this overly deep story, although the characters are amazing. The art,
I can play this in front of my children, ladies and gentlemen. I can play this in front of my children. That is chef's kiss. Continue, sir.
Just Blam, to your point though, this could absolutely be an anime or a Saturday morning cartoon.
Easy.
Mm-hmm. And it works on so many levels because the combat system is actually super complex. Mm-hmm. But that's if you want to play it that way, right?
Exactly.
And the way they're able to kind of make it work on if you just want to button mash. You can, mm-hmm. or you can actually use these combos.
Check the move list. Yeah,
it is really scientifically designed in a lab for me.
Yeah,
right. You talk about the art style. You talk about the combo.
You know what, Everborn though?
Platformer.
So real quick, to your point there, sir, I think it's scientifically driven, but it's scientifically driven for Xbox, seemingly. I'm sorry, but look at this. They wanted Jet Set Radio Future, the only exclusive to this day that I think is still woefully missed in Xbox platform. It's still stuck on OG Xbox, right? So they wanted that. This evokes that. When you get into the game and you start the game from jump, what do you see? Sunset Overdrive. That's what you see. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Locomotion. It doesn't have exactly the same locomotion, but it really does have locomotion if you once you get your tools with you, right? You have the grapple shot, which you can use to grapple to enemies. You can do this, you can do that. You can stay off the ground while still traversing and still hitting your enemies and this and that. You can really do interesting things. But it seems like this answers a question that Microsoft has needed an answer to. Both Jet Set Radio Future and Sunset Overdrive are both answered in this game. It's almost like they went, we can't get those games back. Give us something that gives people the nostalgia hit for those games.
They could get Jet Set Radio Future back, but we'll talk about that later.
Well, in another way.
The thing is this, though. I think it's even bigger than that, right? Because, one, this is a Japanese game, right?
Yes.
They don't have a lot in the way of Japanese exclusives. And the best part is, yes, this is a first party game, and it's a Japanese exclusive, and it's third person, and it's kind of story driven, and it's all of those things. And here's the thing, right? If you look at some of the sort of transitions from cutscene to gameplay and how that's
it's seamless, bro. It's crazy. It's crazy.
And look at every you can't go 5 minutes in this game without some kind of a set piece. And
dude, I wish they had a photo mode in this game. I wish there was a photo mode or something.
But listen, real talk, you can snap these photos yourself and it really looks like it's somebody that drew it in a comic panel. And the thing is, like they this is not. I don't know if I can call this a AA game.
No, I don't think so either.
No, I don't. Yeah, I think
I don't know if it falls somewhere between AA and AAA, but it is definitely
Let me pause for a moment there and say the reason why we may be hard for us to give it the AA or AAA or the A standard is because the A standards have eroded for a while. Back in the day, solid AA games were solid AA games, like issueless, quality built, clean, no, it doesn't look shallow. This harkens back to the days of quality AA games where the limit is the limit because the art style was for a reason, even though the art style is brilliant and timeless, right? You can definitely tell that this was built with a smaller team and a shorter timeline in mind, but it doesn't take anything away from the greatness that is the game itself. It's just, I think that the A's have become derivative because AA games in general tend to be kind of like how we used to look at shovelware. Oh, they just kind of threw something out. And that's not this. So I can still think this is AA, but this is upper echelon AA, where and I think possibly it's because of the way they released it, right? Nobody was on their butt about when is this coming out? Oh, when's the release date? When's the trailer? They were allowed to finish and cleanly finish, play it, and go, okay, we are pens down, we're done now, before they even let you know it exists. Everborn, you wanted to say something?
One thing I want to say is what the shadow drop is super interesting to me, because if you've been paying attention to how the media coverage and the sort of the discourse around every Xbox release, because we know about them, any little development hiccup becomes a whole story and creates a narrative about people not knowing what they're doing. And then reviewers come in and then they kind of give this super hard, cynical eye to all these Xbox games that come out. And this kind of avoids all that, because I could picture a build up to this game, and then if there's any delay, people say, "Oh, they don't have their shit together." Sorry, they don't have their stuff together.
And by the way, a quick aside: YouTube is on the warpath these days, so this may be the last S word you hear on this show today. Continue, sir.
So they don't have their stuff together, right? And then, then it comes out, and then reviewers have it early, and then you could picture the article saying, "Oh, the beat system is too unforgiving," and this and that, and just creating this kind of tamping down of it, and then the discourse around the Metascore. But now the Metascore doesn't matter because they put it in people's hands, and anyone can say whatever they want, but it is in your hands, and whether you jive with the game or you don't.
Speaking of Metascore, there is no Metascore right now because not enough people have reviewed it. The user score. The user score, based on 1,205 user reviews, 92%. Go for it.
Yeah, 9.2, I should say. Of the people trying to review bomb
it.
But again, so you've effectively been able to kind of bypass that and let the people decide whether the game is for them or not. And the other thing is this shock and awe strategy. It kind of puts the fear of God in you if you want to cancel Game Pass, right? You say, well, I don't know what they're going to drop it. I don't know when they're going to drop it.
Yes.
Let me just keep this subscription.
Absolutely.
That's why I keep Netflix.
Right? Now,
just in case.
Go ahead, PTK Blam, go ahead.
No, and I want to kind of elaborate on what Everborn said. That raises another question, and I don't want to go too far left here, just regarding reviews and things like that. Are we already conditioned? Because I feel like like you said, some games just already started a deficit. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like people are conditioned to look at all of these negative things, and we're always, looking at it from that perspective when these games come out. So like you said, that completely bypassed the ability for people to create preconceived notions, because it went straight from, assembly line to consumer, essentially. There's no middleman or anything in the middle. So we didn't get an opportunity to do that.
And one to that point though, I do think that the Xbox community may deserve a little bit of smoke here, right? And I'll tell you, I will tell you why.
Yeah.
Right?
Speak on it, sir.
It seems like sometimes we just blow any direction of the wind.
PTSD, man.
Right? and anytime there's some bad news, instead of actually critically questioning it or seeing things for yourself, we just go into like DEFCON 1 and it's like, oh my God, here we go again. And then we start crying, right? And so the reason that we talk about this whole media thing is because we fall for it too. Right,
the banana and tailpipe every time.
Yep.
Right, and Slow-Mo in the chat said it. Play games instead of playing game in politics. Right. So I just think that this idea of, hey, it's available if you have Game Pass, and there's 30 million.
You can play it now.
There's zero barrier of entry if you're already subscribed. So why not try it out and form your own opinion? Absolutely. Instead of letting like talking heads or disingenuous bad face arguments and perspective kind of sway you, right? So to me, I really think it's genius, and I think it's a strategy going forward. You obviously can't do it with every game. I don't think Starfield you could shadow drop. You need like a marketing build up for that. Yeah. But things like this, absolutely. Don't tell anybody anything. Don't give anybody early access. Don't let them control the narrative for you. Build it, put it out when it's ready, and let the audience, let the gamers decide whether they like it or not.
Yeah. Mr. Joe in the Dark in here with a $5 super chat. Thank you once again, sir. He says, with the success of Hi-Fi Rush, would you like to see Tango tackle the sequel to Battletoads and see what they can do with that IP? Bro, I like to see them tackle any of those 2D platformers. Go ahead, PTK.
Let them run with this. Like, what are we talking about? We don't need to have that other conversation. Like, we don't need to have, like, in my opinion, we don't need to have that conversation just yet. Let Hi-Fi Rush breathe. I love the question though, but I need them to do this. Like, let this breathe. Listen, they can build on top of this game. I could see, maybe some DLC down the line. The characters, the story's already there. The characters are already lovable. There's other things that can happen. I'm sure there's a larger
and oddly enough, they're kind of making fun of Microsoft with the story. Weird corporate this, weird corporate that. Right? They're kind of making fun of Microsoft with the story from a game that came from Microsoft. It's really brilliant.
I don't need them working on anything else. I need them, I don't know if this game is completely done. Maybe we're not getting anything else. Maybe this is just the package we're going to get. I don't know, because sometimes I'm sure they didn't know the game would be this popular. There's no way they could have known.
Yeah, I think even Phil Spencer made it seem like he was surprised at how it caught fire.
Yeah, like there's no way, especially the way they put it out, there's no build up, so they couldn't get any idea. Usually you can gauge with build up and pre-orders, engagement, social media, stuff like that, build up, how popular. There's no build up. This game just exploded, and I'd love to see them continue to do this. Maybe some DLC down the line. I love that. I mean, maybe introduce some new characters. I'm sure you could build on the world. I'm sure there's other things.
Imagine a sequel where they have maybe some hip hop music.
Right? Look, I mean, come on now.
So the EverbornSaga's gameplay doesn't look so terrible. Is that the case?
Listen. That's another thing. I'm starting to get the beat now, but I couldn't get it. Like if it was. I
figured that was self-serving. I figured it was.
If it was some hip hop beats in there, I would get it more. But listen, or imagine a sequel where you have this combat, but you add the kind of locomotion from Jet Set and
I need that locomotion. It's the only thing is missing in this game. Like that locomotion, that forward momentum, that speed. Sunset Overdrive had it. Jet Set Radio had it. This is the only one. Now, this has locomotion with its traversal and its hitting enemies and whatnot, but that moment-to-moment speed that those other games have, this misses it so much in comparison.
Really quick, so Slow-Mo in the chat says he's positive they had no idea how it would be received because they rarely know what the community is looking for. Yeah. So here's the thing. I think he's half right.
Okay.
Meaning, I do believe that they didn't know, and this was a test for them, right? They didn't know how it would be received. Smaller team, you can afford.
I mean, technically, this is the third test, though. But continue.
Hold on a second. So I agree that they didn't know how it would be received and that this was a test. However, I don't think anybody knew they wanted this. right?
I mean, I knew I wanted this. I mean, I'm down with Bomb Funk Cyberfunk. I've been waiting for that game, which is also a spiritual successor.
That's not what I mean. It's like nobody was like going out and saying like make a combo driven anime.
Sure. Yeah, they just let their creatives.
And then people realize they need this now.
Well, the key is they let their creatives go wild and continue doing what they were doing, right? And by the way, real quick, this is an Easter egg for those who like Evil Within. These two characters are from the Evil Within, only they've been roboticized, and like while you're in this wonderful, hilarious beat world, they're sitting there and everything is terrible, and the world is a representation of man's inability to successfully love other man. Like it's hilarious, the juxtaposition that they put in here. If you guys haven't seen it, you should find him. It's Sebastian is his real name, but of course it's a robot, so they call him Sabat because it's a robot. It's a really funny Easter egg. People should check it out. But no, to your point, Everborn, to your point, I like the fact that they're not necessarily, because that's the thing that I think has been missing from Microsoft, from Xbox, right? Other platforms show you things that you didn't know you wanted, but Microsoft is very good at listening to you potentially to what you want, but they hadn't been able to thread that needle to give you the thing you didn't know you wanted until now. Right? They have been very good at identifying things that will be, indie darlings that you didn't see happening.
I digress.
Yeah, please.
What you just said, because I feel like Grounded is a game that people didn't know they wanted.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're right, and that's exactly what I was going to say. Like they have been. Pentiment. They have been good at finding indie gems that then speak to a certain audience, right? And we also always have to give them credit for allowing folks to see, give them credit for allowing creatives to go out off the beaten path, even if it doesn't make anything, right? Yeah. Ninja Theory has allowed to release one. It came out, it was a dud, that's fine. Grounded, they've been releasing Grounded. Grounded has done great, right? So there's that. Now you have this one that's doing great. There's that. They even allowed
earlier Sea of Thieves would count as well.
Would count as that, right? You have Playground Games being allowed to do Fable, which by many accounts is a weird thing to allow people to do when they're known for one kind of thing. They seem to be okay with allowing their studios to have some creative outlet and get off the beaten path. The thing that they wouldn't really do with, let's say, 343, right? Because they were like, hey, you're a Halo. It seems like these other folks that have come, whether it be they've learned their lesson or these games were in the hopper way before they bought them. It looks like they're really, really like focused on letting them shine and get those creative outlets out. Now, I want to switch the conversation about this for just a bit. We're still on this game, but I want to bring up a point that Hail Hydra in the chat I'll put out, and Hail Hydra, sir, Hail Hydra. I will put that out there real quick and say, he says this thing has been in production since 2017, and I've seen that as well, and it's brought about a very odd narrative, and I want to get your takes on that. It's been like the developer said it was in production since 2017, which is technically before it was purchased by Xbox. So now I hear pervasive narrative like, oh, there's a version somewhere that's for PlayStation that was kiboshed because of the purchase, right?
Hey, guess what?
No, hold on. And you can't give Xbox credit for this because this was not, they were not part of the decision-making process. Go ahead, Everborn.
I'm going to stop you right there. If there was a PlayStation version, I guess we'll never know, right? Secondly...
Salty, sir. Go ahead.
Xbox doesn't need your credit, right?
Okay. All they need is your dollars.
Man, say that. Say that. Please say that, Everborn.
They need you. They need you to get an Xbox.
They need your dollars, not your credit.
Yeah. You don't have to get them credit. But when we're done with this, I'll go back to Xbox and play this game, and you can tell me how that feels. Now, by the way, what I love, right? I love, because we haven't been here in some time.
Aaron,
right?
You need to stop. You're going to make him terrible to deal with. Come on now.
No. I love the idea that PlayStation has a big exclusive in Forspoken right now, and this is what competition looks like, right? And you see Xbox also have their own exclusive in the same month and both parties can go. Forspoken is not for me, right? But it's for some people, right? The idea that
and we'll talk about Forspoken a little bit, but continue.
But I'm just saying this idea that they're both delivering high profile exclusives. This is what we want, right? For a very long time, people on Xbox kind of had to sit back and just watch. If you didn't have both, you had to watch the Sony guys have all the fun. And this is what you want to see, that ruthless competition. Forget about Activision for a second. Forget about all of that. Forspoken is out. You don't get it on Xbox, but you have this. So everybody's having something to enjoy. And to me, this is what we want.
So shout out to the OG Pixel Bit. He's here with a $5. We appreciate you being here. He said technically the dev did not say that. He said it was proposed in 2017. They never said anything about when it started. Okay. Also, who cares, kid? Suck it up. Bethesda's Xbox. Welcome.
Facts, man. Facts. I didn't even get to say my piece on that.
Please speak on it. Speak on it. Yes.
No, Everborn, he already, so eloquently, they don't need you guys credit for anything. You know what I mean? They need you to buy these games and buy these systems. So yeah, that's ridiculous. We don't even need to have the conversation about if there was even another version. Who cares? Go play the game where Game Pass exists. So that's where you can find it, on Steam as well. So
absolutely,
we don't even make it complicated or anything like that. Those are irrelevant questions.
Absolutely,
also, and no one said that about Returnal, but here we are.
Yeah, we're not doing that. Yeah,
and we're going to continue down the line of Hi-Fi Rush because that game is taking up a lot of energy in the room. We're going to continue talking about it, but let's talk. Let's talk more in the news stories, right? So the news of the week. I want to bring a bit more attention to some of the what the reporters have been saying about it. There's been so many really great articles talking about how the game is, and it, to your point, Everborn, it seems that since journalists weren't given time to adjudicate or come up with their decision or their thoughts on the game before consumers did, they have no choice but to go along with what the consumers are saying, and it's all glowing. So it seems so far. So let me just share a few quick little notes here. So as I said, Hi-Fi Rush is now 9.2 in the user reviews. It hasn't gotten your Metascore yet, and that makes sense because it shadow dropped, so nobody got a chance.
Whenever the Metascore comes out, though, no one is going to care.
No one's going to care. Exactly. And of course, here it is on OpenCritic. People love it. Shout out to Xbox Era. We love those guys there. They gave it 9.5 out of 10. VGC gave it 4 out of 5. Way Too Many Games gave it 9.5 out of 10. Like, people are giving it glowing reviews, and I think it's well deserved. And I kind of want to broach the conversation a bit on that side. That before this gave you that separate of, hey, the journalists aren't with it, but the consumers are loving it. Before this, it was High on Life, right? Yep. And before that, it was Vampire Survivors. It seems that whoever at Microsoft is out there, fighting the good fight for the small quality games is really winning right now. What do you think, PTK?
So I've said this I've been on this train for a long time. These smaller games carry the industry. This is what video games is all about, man. I've been pushing this narrative for forever, and we've talked about this on the Shop podcast. The indie space, and I hate using that word because it's sometimes people use it in a negative connotation, but that space is thriving and has been. It's pretty much carried us consistently for the last 3, 4, 5 years. I would say just consistent. These AA smaller indie games, and I love the fact that Xbox has always pushed that space. They've always promoted these smaller developers. Now, obviously, this isn't a smaller developer, but these ideas, letting the companies that they buy work autonomously and, have these quote unquote passion projects. I hate that word too, because people try and turn that into something bad, but just make other stuff that they have ideas, allowing these companies and these talented people just to be talented, and it's bearing fruit. Now, the idea that the shadow drop prevented, a lot of negative things maybe from happening. I feel like people are conditioned. If people, so say for instance, and this is for you and Everborn. Say for instance, this game came out exactly how it came out. The shadow, it came out great, running great, looking great as it is now. But it was like a week prior. Do you guys think that people really would have nitpicked this game to death? You guys still think in its current state that people would have found something wrong with this game?
Yes.
So you think had they released it, let's say had they released it the normal way, like during the time of the Game Awards or something, you think that people would have nitpicked it?
Do you think people? No. You guys think people would have nitpicked it?
I think that the meta reviews would have been like an 80, right? And you would have had those weird websites that don't really care about the game still reviewing it and giving ridiculous takes. And then people would have ran with the 80 or 79 meta score, and then it probably would have got an 82, and then everybody would be like, it would just kind of fall through the wayside, and people would believe that. But you put it in the hands of the people, right? I absolutely believe if they did it the other way, people would have controlled the perception of it. And I think that's a big problem now. But I do want to talk about what you said about the double A's, right? Because that's super important. And I don't want to take away from the triple A's, because when you have $100 million budget, you have to make that money back. So you have to file down a lot of edges, right? Because you have that kind of budget. When you have a smaller budget, you have more freedom to try new things creatively and with your gameplay mechanics. And what usually happens is the smaller budgeted games they create the waves, right? And then later on, the big budget AAA games polish the edges, right, and dumb it down a little bit, and then we kind of see that kind of permeate to the mass audience. But you're always going to get the creative gameplay and new mechanics and things like that and new ideas, because they can afford to take those risks, right? So it all depends on what you want to do. But what I'm saying is, you cannot look at a game with a $200 million budget and expect them to do experimental stuff.
Sure,
right?
Of course not.
It's just not going to work.
The indie space is where experiments live. Both. Yeah, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. The indie space is where experiments live. Yeah. It's where you're allowed to be off the beaten path. And when they do good work there, then some of that gets incorporated into AAA budget.
Can I say one more thing?
Please, PTK, go for it.
So this is, and I want to give Xbox a lot of credit, for this in particular. Xbox has invested in these type of games. They've always kept the same message regarding innovation, regarding small creators, regarding even allowing, like I said earlier, their larger teams to break off and do different things. I'll give them a lot of kudos for this, because they didn't. I mean, there's a world where this may not have gotten greenlit. Right? There's a world where maybe they're like, nah.
Sure, yeah.
Within, right?
Yeah. I think even Phil Spencer said that, like in an interview, like that's those smaller games in a retail world, in a just go to retail world, they may not exist. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wait, just 1 second. So Slow-Mo in the chat says the only people who would have nitpicked it to death are the irrelevant people who never like anything Xbox. I think the problem is, a lot of Xbox people let those people
control the narrative,
the terms of discussion, right?
Exactly. Yep.
And that's why I said the Xbox community, in a way, sometimes deserves some of the smoke too.
Oh yeah,
because they keep falling for the okie doke every time.
They keep falling for that tailpipe
every time.
Let me real quick interject here, because we have a few super chats that I want to make sure I keep up with. First and foremost, I see we have 80. Well, we almost had like 90 people in here. Only 42 likes. Please consider hitting the like button if you haven't done so already. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so. Thank you so much for being here, checking out the content. Lucius Augustus in here. Good morning, sir. Thank you for being here. He's being a little slanderous on a Saturday morning. He is saying people are asking for Hi-Fi Rush on PlayStation and Switch so Sony can block third-party games from coming to Xbox, but Xbox has to make first parties come to PlayStation. Ooh, sir, we see the smoke that you are billowing, and you are right with that righteous smoke. I hear you, bro. And also, we have Raiden Blade in here. Thank you, sir, with a £5 super chat saying, this is why I'm standing on my square. Xbox does not need the VGAs, right? High on Life versus Hi-Fi Rush. Compare the difference. No reviews No reviewers got to Hi-Fi Rush. True, and still that game is shining brightly. Absolutely. So I think what's happening here
shout out to Splendiferous in the chat also.
Oh, I didn't even see he was here. Yes, shout out to you, good sir. Welcome. I think what's happening here is it seems like those games need to be at a higher echelon, and if they're so good that even if there are agendas from the media or the reviewing public, that the gamers themselves can go, nah, you don't know what you're talking about. Same thing happened with High on Life, right? In that instance, reviewers actually did get their hands on it. They did review it, dashed it all over the place, and then the consumers were the ones to go, what are you guys playing? Because you're not playing the same thing I am, right? So it's a very interesting place that we need to be. But I will say, as much as we give these folks smoke and they deserve it, I will say, in a small place, Microsoft kind of put themselves in a position to always need to prove themselves, and they still haven't.
Yeah.
They haven't undone that yet, right? Yeah. This is a good start in 2023 with Hi-Fi Rush and the more to come.
We talked about this. We talked about this. It's not just about this year, right? They're gonna need 2-3 years of sustained momentum like this for people to trust when they say we got this.
Absolutely.
And for people to not pay attention to the nonsense. Oh, like, you understand that there was a whole big discussion about Redfall is delayed from a date that they didn't announce.
And we're going to talk about that. There's another one. We're going to get into that.
Actual discussion that we had.
Everborn, it's funny you mentioned that because there's another one of those, and we're going to transition to that. But let me quickly close up the chat, close up the poll, which we've now had for a while. The poll was in there saying, what is your overall grade for Xbox, whether it be first, second, or third party, the whole thing in 2020 and 2022. And by and large, between first and A and B are neck and neck. 38% say A, 39% say B, and let's see, 16% say C, and then 7% say Xbox got no games, right? So it is what it is. Hold on. Before I won't move on. I just want to get Splendiferous's super chat in here because he has been also very generous in dropping a quick super chat for us. So let make sure I read that off. We have Splendiferous in here with a $2 super chat saying, Hi-Fi Rush is the type of game that can be spread wide. Absolutely, good sir. I completely agree with you. We are going to get off of the Hi-Fi Rush topic and talk about what you're describing as far as people complaining about release dates that haven't been announced yet. But before we do that, you get to have the last word, sir. What were you going to say?
So we had a discussion, I think the week before, maybe it was 2 weeks prior, about the new age of marketing.
About how Microsoft is marketing.
World,
yes.
Right? And everybody, this is another weird thing that we do. Everybody's so mad that they're not marketing games to them that they already know about.
I mean, to be fair, no one's saying they're mad about it. Those of us that were complaining about it,
on Twitter about it. I can send you some tweets from people.
That's different. That's different.
Okay. Very prominent people. The point is, in this new world where you have the ability and you have a large enough target captive audience, you can do things like not have a large buildup, but be able to surface this thing again to 30 million and, maybe in the future 50, 100 million people. And like, if I do a commercial and 30 million people see it, I've done my job. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
But I have this audience of people right here who can now go and play this game, and I can put it right in front of them, and there's nothing stopping them from playing it other than an internet connection.
Yeah, that does fundamentally change how you would market games going forward.
It is a game changer, yes.
Yeah. And so we get caught up in why aren't your tweets synchronized with the commercials, and why are you not doing Super Bowl ads?
Sure.
Because we don't need to. Right? So we have to think outside of the box with these things, and Hi-Fi Rush is controlling a lot of the conversation, at least for now. We'll see how it goes next week.
So Everborn, let us move forward because we're being accused of calling it
I'm not saying they don't need
Rush.
Marketing. I'm saying the traditional rules of marketing
may not apply here.
Yes.
We have been accused of being the Hi-Fi
and
Rush
they don't
podcast.
need Super Bowl ads.
So we're going to move swiftly along. But to your point on people like having a narrative driven that speaks on a game that hasn't officially, the date hasn't officially been announced yet, I saw this come out and I thought it was quite interesting. So I thought I'd share this with you guys. Forza Motorsport's release date may have been delayed. Even though technically Forza Motorsport hasn't released the day. And this is not to clown VGC. I really like VGC. I like Video Games Chronicle. I like the news stories and how they tend to put out their content. But this is a narrative that has been prevailing because, yes, we will get into the direct proper, but since they did not actually give you the release date of Forza Motorsport, now the narrative is this game has been delayed. And actually, it's not even, and to be fair, to be absolutely fair, right? It wasn't even just that. It was after the show was done and they did not give you the full release date. You know, Jeff Grubb, shout out to Mr. Grubby Grubb. He used to have the best name in the business. He cut it off recently. Wow. He basically said that he's heard that it's been delayed to the second half and maybe even further. So I know that none of you have heard this story because I like to throw it at y'all. I will start with you, PTK, because I'm going to leave Everborn for last. What are your thoughts on hearing this? Yes, it's true. It doesn't have a release date. It never did. But we were all under the assumption it was the first half because Microsoft made promises, right?
Yeah.
Based on this, it seems like maybe
weren't under the assumption it was the first half. Microsoft said it was the first half.
Yes, they made promises. So it seems like they have, even still, they haven't said anything about it yet. But based on a very trusted source, right? Jeffy Grubb is not to be messed with. When he puts it out there, he's not joking. What are your thoughts on them potentially releasing this in, I don't know, Christmas of 2023? What do you think?
I mean, it's tough, like you said, because there was no release date, but we've already had, they've already set the expectation. And I think that's the only discourse I have is the expectation versus what happens in reality. Now, I understand that as a consumer, we are like tired of this happening, especially as an Xbox fan. It seems to be a fairly regular thing. And I get it, right? Like nobody wants to be lied to essentially and say, hey, the game's coming out around this time. And then 3 months, 4 months later, it's like, well, it's not, it's going to come out a little bit later. But I also am not ignorant enough to forget that this video games are fluid. You know, all this stuff is fluid. You know what I mean? So things can happen, things can change, dates get moved. I'm not happy about it. You know, I'm not the biggest Forza fan either, to be admittedly. So people like people like Fuzz, Dealer.
You better not let Fuzzy Belvedere sit here. You say,
well, no, Fuzz knows that. Fuzz knows that. Like he plays enough for all three of us.
For everybody, that's right. Like, for sure.
Yeah, I get all of my Forza through Fuzz vicariously. But
what happened here?
I don't even. know.
What is going on? Oh no, what's going on? We're back. That was ridiculous. Forgive us. We're back on. Continue.
on one hand, it just sucks because it always seems like. So whether or not this is true or not, it might be true. It's kind of leaning towards it's true just because we didn't get a date out of the 5 games that were shown. We didn't get a date from Forza, so it kind of leads me to believe that they're not sure where Forza is gonna hit. It is kind of like, man, I just wish like. For me, it's like, I just wish y'all would, you know what I mean? Like that one thing, like I wish y'all could just finally get it together. Can we get this one?
They should just keep doing shadow drops when games are ready.
This is, and to your point, Everborn, this is why when they said, hey, these are the games they're going to show you for the next 12 months, I was cool with it. Because they don't know how to have that long tail hype. They don't know how to do that.
Things change. Things change over time. Like, we've seen people leaving and all these layoffs and all these other things happen. And I'm not saying that that's a part of it, but the industry shifts and changes. It goes left sometimes, and you might have to move a game.
You might have to adapt. Absolutely.
And I understand. It sucks as a consumer and a fan of Xbox and a fan of video games because it's like the same song and dance, and I'm not gonna absolve them from that. But I'm not gonna go far left and say, you know what, like I'm sick of this. We got 4 out of the 5 is not bad. Like we got release dates for everything else, so I'm not too down about it.
I think High on Life really, really, really helped them sidestep that righteous smoke for the show.
Definitely.
It really did. It really
Definitely.
did. And to your point, here's some more thoughts from the community. Thank you, Raiden Blade, once again. £5 super chat. He says Xbox should stop announcing games. Tell us when it's ready. Right? I don't want to know about games because you are creating.
I think that's you're talking for yourself, though. That's the problem.
Well, hold on. Right. You know, he doesn't want to know. He doesn't want to know about games because you are creating more problems for your studios. Although I agree with you guys, and I completely do. I agree with you guys. I do see the point that Raid Blade is making here, and especially considering the fact that they have the notorious shadow droppers in pocket now. Bethesda, they didn't shadow drop like they've done now. Like Fallout 4 released in 6 months from announce, right? They know how to tell you about something that's happening, give you a huge marketing push, and then in 6 months you're playing it, right? Yeah. So because Microsoft is not that company that knows how to keep you on the hook for years, a la Final Fantasy Remake, a la all the other remakes that, you know, that how PlayStation, the market leader, knows how to do.
Hooked for years for Forspoken, and how did that work out?
Stop. That's just console warrior, sir. Come on now.
Listen, I'm just presenting an argument.
The Kaiser Sose of the console warrior market, ladies and gentlemen.
Here's the thing, right? Games get delayed every day, B.
True.
Right?
True.
Right? Like
true, B.
Love the reference.
If the game is delayed, the game is delayed.
Yep.
Right? People promise you dates, and then things on the floor look different. Mm-hmm. I think, and I don't care what anybody says, you don't have to agree. That's fine. Mm-hmm. They made up for it with Hi-Fi Rush. So you expected to get 4 dates. You got 4 dates. The roadmap from now till June is like sunshine bright.
It is.
Right?
And I think,
and so we can cry about a date. But the same people telling us that this is an L. No, shut up, Siri. The same people telling us that this is an L was the same people that told me when I was like, release Halo.
Yeah.
Because it should come out with the campaign. They told me they ended up being right. They should.
I was about to say,
Halo.
In hindsight, right? You was wrong there, player. Right? I think that's a bad example.
So they delayed Halo by a year. And I was like, release Halo, and the people now that's telling me it's an L for them. Yeah. So what if it's an L? If the game coming out finished and ready is better, and this is not like 2022 or the first half of 2021 when they didn't have any games for you to release. Every month, and we can go through this, right? You know, we got Stalker 2 coming. We have Flintlock coming. Obviously, we have Minecraft Legends. We have Redfall. We have Monster Hunter Rise right now.
A quick aside. Raiden Blade trying to correct his record. He put another £2 super chat saying that we would be worried about Fable had they not spoken about it, right? So it is a very fine needle being thread there.
If they announce nothing for the future, because look how many people were upset when they gave you a 12-month roadmap. What's coming out after that? Right.
Well, so but you know what, Everborn, to be fair about that 12-month roadmap, the reason why people are upset about that is because Microsoft has not proven themselves to be able to make that happen, right? That's the reason why everybody's date watching right now.
While you're playing a game that we all gushed over.
But that's the reason. That's the reason why people are. The reason why people are date eyeballing right now because you said 12 months and we know you haven't been able to do that before, so we don't trust you. Go ahead, PTK.
Can we just address the elephant in the room?
Go ahead,
man. Can we just get this out the way? Mm-hmm. Xbox doesn't have the cachet that Sony and Nintendo have. That's just the facts of the matter. Like
they can't make those statements like Sony and PlayStation does.
They don't have the cushion that's so. And Everborn alluded to this earlier. Mm-hmm. Sony, and this is to Sony and Nintendo's credit, they've built that over time. This is why Sony can go 18 months and not have a single event, and nobody cares about it. Xbox can't go 6 months without something,
without saying something,
trying to figure out what's going on. If we're just addressing the actual issue, Xbox just does not have the cachet, whatever you want to call it. You can, we can formulate what that is. They don't have what the other two have to be able to move around the way they move around. They can't move like Sony or Nintendo and don't have that credit. I don't say credibility, but that cachet built up with just general fan, not general fan base, but just people in general. For now, whether it's fair or not, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure we address that.
And to your point, PTK, that's the same reason why they can't make the same aggressive moves that PlayStation does, because of their size. You come in with what you have and you make moves with how you make moves, because like you're saying, Sony and Nintendo have built up years of established trust with consumers. They can now stretch it a little bit, and people will still be there because we know Sony, they solid. We know PlayStation, they got bangers.
There's a flip side to this. The flip side is because they're not Sony, because they're not Nintendo, we get things like Game Pass because they have to operate differently.
Yes,
and they understand. So it's a pro and a con, obviously.
Absolutely.
The con is they don't get and we talked about this, the reviews and all this other stuff. Nintendo, Sony, they don't have that same issue. At the same time, they don't have the ability, those two, to do something like Game Pass. So there's a pro and a con, there's a push and a pull here. And that's the one thing I think people forget. These companies don't function the same way. Yeah, they all make video games, but they have to go about it fundamentally different because of just the type of companies they are. Sony's a hardware company. Xbox is a software company. I mean, Microsoft's a software company. They make OSs and things like that. So fundamentally, they have to go about these things differently. But if we're just talking about video games, let's just get that out of the way. That's where a lot of the argument, the back and forth comes from about why Xbox is viewed the way it is. It's just something, and we all see it in the media. What happened when God of War is about to come out? What happened when The Last of Us TV show is about to come out?
We're going to get into that. We're going to get into that, by the way.
Yes. My point is that there's nothing, you don't see the entire timeline was Last of Us.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh my God, I'm so ready. Nobody has seen a single second of a pilot.
The only time I see smoke about the Last of Us TV show is from non-gamers who are like, why did they let this video game maker come into the space and do something? Besides that, though, everyone else that's even tangentially related to video games, they are just swooning with amazement at The Last of Us.
I don't need to see anything. I don't need to watch a second of it. It's going to be a classic. Season 2, Season 3, Season 4, already. Go ahead and sign them up, HBO. We don't need to see nothing.
Absolutely.
That's my point. So I know it's kind of long-winded. I do apologize.
Oh, no, not at all.
I wanted to
you have thread the needle for us absolutely perfectly, because now we are going to go on to Phil Spencer's interview and him actually talking about The Last of Us 2. But before we get there, I will once again thank everybody in the chat for being so lively. We see so many people still having great conversations about what we're talking about. If you have any questions that you want us to discuss, anything you want us to bring up, how about you put it in the chat, put question in it. You don't have to super chat if you don't want to. Just put question in it, bring my attention to it, and I'll make sure I ask the question. EverbornSaga, you're going to say something.
Yeah, just to wrap up this point, right?
Yes, sir.
If we look at the roadmap from now till June, if they're delivering what they promised and then some, which so far they are.
So far.
If Forza gets delayed, it gets delayed, right? Because I think a lot of people are more concerned with a date than the actual quality games you're getting.
Do you say the same thing? Do you say the same thing if the question of the matter is not Forza but Starfield? If Starfield is Christmas 2023, is that still okay with you? Just like what we're talking about here, we're talking about Forza.
It has to be.
Listen, here's the thing. It would be more disastrous, not only to the brand but to the morale of the people who are crying right now, if those games ship and they're not what we're expecting them to be. So if it needs to be delayed, it's a delay is fine. The only reason people had an issue with the delay last year is because they did not have backup plans. So the biggest thing we asked was, if you are going to delay a game, you need to have a plan A, B, and C for when things don't go your way. And it looks like they have that plan A, B, and C. So if something gets delayed, it just gets delayed. That's the way the cookie crumbles, right? Make sure you have a steady release of high quality content, and you have your own high quality content to go head to head with your competitors, so your customers do not feel like they're left in the rain while everybody else is having fun.
Absolutely.
And that is what they need to do. If they miss a date, they just missed a date.
Facts.
Right?
Yep.
People are more concerned with these lists than they are with the actual game.
List wars, ladies and gentlemen. List wars.
Right?
Yes.
So I want to see what the ratio of complaining about a date that for a game for a game that they're not going to be able to play for X amount of months. When I want to see how many game clips you posted versus how much you complain.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's just keep things in perspective. If this was 2022 and they didn't have anything else, I'm right there with you with your pitchforks. But there's games now. They've been delivering games, and they seem to be continuing to do that.
So I said this on another show, and I'll say it on this show as well. To your point, the pitchforks are sharp. They're ready to go. They're right off screen. Everborn's is right off screen. You can't see it right now. We got it in hand. We're ready. It's right over there. I feel it, but it's not right on screen just yet. So we're waiting, and I would recommend others do the same thing.
You know why I'm not holding the pitchfork?
Why you not
holding the controller?
Because you're holding the controller. That's what's all right. So Splendiferous.
No, but hold on.
Let me get the super chats out the way. There's a couple of them.
One second.
Go ahead.
This is exactly what I'm talking about, Slomo. He said, where's this energy for Halo Infinite? And that is my point, right? I said release Halo Infinite.
So for my audio listeners, Slomo says, where is the same energy for the Halo Infinite Everborn when the majority of the release? Let me see. I didn't see that. When the majority of release now folks barely played it. Yeah.
So I mean, I completed the campaign. I was never playing multiplayer. That's why I said release it. But the point is, that was the wrong thing to do.
Even though you insisted that they should do it.
Just because that was the wrong thing to do, that we should continue doing that. No, if the game's not ready, don't give us another date, and you release it, and you give us a hardcore date when it's ready. That's it. So if it's not ready, it's just not ready. End of story.
So, Splendiferous with a $2 super chat saying Sony and Nintendo already had more first-party studios. When did that happen? Well, in the beginning, anyway. Now, that's clearly not the case. But,
not anymore.
There was a time when that was the case. And of course, we once again, Raiden Blade being prolific on our show today, he leaves another £5 super chat saying, "Loose lip sync ships. Say nothing. Let the game speak when they are ready, not before. Microsoft is trying to catch up and compete and compete with others. So just shh." Yeah, let the game speak for themselves. I don't disagree with that point. Yeah, go ahead.
That's the only issue with that is that, like, if you stay quiet, then you get a whole other group of people saying what's going on. So it's there's always, you know what I mean? Like,
you can't win right now. You can't
really win right. And this goes back to what I'm talking about. Everybody in the chat got a solution.
Yes.
Everybody in chat got a solution. Everybody in chat, go ahead and email Phil your solutions. I'm pretty sure he's thought about it.
He probably heard about all of them.
Chat also has an a-hole.
Hey now. Hey now. YouTube demonetization, good sir.
I didn't say it. I didn't say the word.
But,
Lord, anyway.
This is not. I'm not saying anything like this. That was not a slight at chat.
Sure.
I would never.
No, that was a slight for me. I'll take that.
But no, I would never do that. But my point is that you have to try and balance what you have. This is what Everborn is talking about. Everything is fluid. Every day, every week, every month, I have to reevaluate where things are at. And in that point in time, I have to evaluate where these games are at this point in time.
But they have to understand they unfortunately are in the position of paying attention to all of the gaming public, right? The game. And unfortunately, not everyone speaks the way we do. As an example, Jason Max is saying, right, we have the pitchforks ready if Starfield is delayed. right?
That's fine.
And it's not that's Jason Max's fault because Microsoft themselves said, "Look, first half we doing this." So if they don't, the smoke will be righteous. It is
absolutely.
What it is.
And this is not me, and I don't want to say any of this like I'm absolving Xbox, because if you're a company, you make a statement, you put something in writing, you show it to the world, you get the backlash when it doesn't happen. I'm not absolving Xbox, but I do, like I said, I understand that these things do happen.
That's
and like he said, because we could you could put another poll in the chat right now. Would you rather play a game that comes out broken and busted and not what you expect? Because listen, if Starfield comes out broken, good luck with that.
That's a whole different conversation.
Listen, that's a whole nother they will never hear the end of it if they, and people are, and it's regardless of how long the game takes, there's already people saying, just because of the whole bug there's already people fully expecting the game to come out not what it's supposed to be anyway. So, outside of those people, I much rather the game come out in a better state. But like I said, Xbox is going to have to absorb all of the negativity because they did set the expectations. But I do understand that things do change, things are fluid, and that's really all I'm saying. And like Everborn said, this is not the same situation as last year as well. You look at this direct, we got dates. The next 4 or 5 months, we have games coming out, third party. We have some first party games coming out. This is already way better than where we at last year. We've already exceeded, as far as the first 6 months, pretty much all of last year at this point, because they've already kind of set us up for 4 or 5 months already. They're pretty much they've pretty much almost cleaned the slate up until E3. Yeah. That gives them pretty much E3 to talk about what's going on the next 12 months. So I think they've done a good job of positioning themselves this time around, even if Forza falls off and it's a little bit later. And Forza is kind of a unique case too, because I do think people are more willing to wait for something like Forza because of the type of game it is. And Turn 10 has built up the cachet. I don't know why anybody would be upset at Turn 10 at all. Like, I don't understand. They don't make anything but 95 plus games. So I don't know why anybody would be upset about the game getting delayed a little further. That game is going to be amazing. There's no reason not to think that Forza Motorsports 8 is going to be anything spectacular.
So the only smoke I have for Forza, and then we'll definitely move on because I want to talk about this Phil Spencer interview. If there's any smoke that I have for Forza, it's that I want to see it being played on a Series S. That's what I want. Right? They have been, the Series S has been clowned for a long time. Myself and Everborn have chatted on this program about how you can't expect third parties to show off your little man in its best light. You need to come out and give it software that really, really takes advantage of it and says, and so that you say that, hey, from now on, if anybody gives the Series S short shrift, look at what we can do with it. It's because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing with it, right? So it is for first party to make that statement. So we know that Turn 10 has been masters of the hardware to the point where they even work hand in hand during the build process of the consoles to talk to Turn 10. Specifically, Turn 10 and the Coalition tend to really have an outsized influence on that hardware. I want to see this game being showed off on the Series S and let that be the benchmark that we go forth with. They're talking ray tracing, they're talking all this, and as you're saying there, PTK, they haven't earned the cachet to be able to just drop something and expect everybody to go, I believe that. Yeah. Everybody will go, yeah, sure, right, prove it, right? You'll have Digital Foundry, I bet you on Monday or more, you'll have Digital Foundry go through all the video they showed and pixel peep and prove whether or not the RT is true or not. I bet you for Forza, RT is probably true, most likely true, but maybe they're running it off of a PC. These are the narratives that keep you from being trusted, right? Mm-hmm. If you're going to come out and show us and say, this is the greatest, this is how next gen starts with this sports game, show it to us in full-fledged light and not the potential obfuscation of, oh, well, we happen to be running this on a 4090, but you don't know that. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. That's what I want. That's the only bit of smoke I have for them. And of course, yeah, this wasn't a full show. There should be time for that.
I disagree on that front, by the way.
Okay. No, please, correct me. Why do you disagree?
I think their competition is kings of doing that.
Sure, yes.
Stuff in on dev kits with higher res than it's actually going to look on the console.
But we're not comparing Sony to Microsoft here.
I know that's cool.
Yeah,
I'm saying the game is available for people on PC.
Yeah,
those people matter. So you show the game.
So you show it, yes. Light. But be honest about
it.
So
what about the slow-mos of the world?
But my point is I bet you the what they've shown already, what they've shown now on this will be analyzed, and they'll go, oh well, you thought that was console, that was this PC with this specs.
No, let me
finish. Don't let that narrative be pervasive. If you're going to show, because to your point, and rightfully so, your games are available on multiple platforms. So your games can be shown off. It can be shown off on multiple platforms. Just be vocal with what platform you're showing so the narrative doesn't get away from you when they discover what platform you're showing.
But they tell you every time. When they show Flight Sim, they said running on a Series X, right?
Sure, but they didn't do that with Forza, is what I'm saying. They didn't
do
that.
They were probably running it on the PC, so what?
This is what permeates that ridiculous narrative.
But I disagree.
And let's be clear here. This is just my self-serving. This is not a narrative that's out there. This is just me personally. When I saw that, I thought, hey, you guys have been dogged with this ridiculous narrative that's been on you for a long time. Here's your premier studio that's tip of the spear when it comes to technology. It's a waste. It's a missed opportunity, in my humble opinion. You should have made more of a point to go, see, this is Series S running this. And that would just shut everything down. Because then that would then set a new benchmark for what people should expect with the console. But at the end of the day, let's be clear here. This is not it's a problem or a showstopper or whatever. They don't and shouldn't necessarily care about that narrative. I just am saying, for me personally, I wish I'd seen that. Go ahead.
They have to compensate for questions that haven't even been asked yet.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's crazy to me that they're in this space that, like, and once again, it's just part of where things are at. Like,
absolutely,
they're in a space to where they have to answer questions that haven't been asked. You know what I mean? Like you said, this is something that you've thought about, and when you saw it, you mentioned it's not maybe a rolling idea on Twitter or anything like that.
No. It's just something I would have loved to see. Right?
Yeah,
if it was a developer sitting down, you see the Series S in view, grabs the controller and starts showing you things, right? And you see the amazing work they've done to transcend what everybody thinks as a potato on Series S, because we all know it's not. There's a lot more to it, and they themselves, specifically Turn 10 and the coalition, right, are the ones to show that when others are not, right? So hey, I wish I'd seen that. Not to take anything away from the show, though. I think the show came out pretty awesome.
Didn't Horizon 5 show? They mentioned when they showed Horizon 5 was running on Series X?
Horizon, yes. During the course of that show, Series X. Yes, during the course of their showing for Horizon 5, at some point they definitely showed you Series X. They even showed you Series S footage. I just wish they did that here and now too, right? But okay. We've beaten this dead horse, and folks in the chat are still talking about it.
I say show it in the best light possible.
Which is not wrong.
PC, show it on PC. It's day one on PC. It's not like PC is a side project.
But I'm not saying they shouldn't show it on PC. I'm just saying it should be prominently displayed. What you're seeing here is PC. They didn't do that. So it leaves room for interpretation.
The game is the game, and it scales. So that's like saying, well, we should show it on a 2070 because that's what most people are going to play.
No one's saying that. You can say this is PC footage, this is console footage, because console footage has been dogged for a while. This was me, not a narrative, not anyone. This was me seeing that, going, man, this would have been that opportunity. That's all I'm saying.
Dogging it, I don't know. Play the game and see it for yourself. I think you show it in the best light.
Sure.
You need an aspirational view.
Let us move on to this Phil Spencer interview, because I think this is also related to all the things that we're talking about.
Competition line all the time. But anyway.
Let's move on. Please hit that like button if you haven't. I see there's 57 likes. We have 115 people in here. Hit that like button, ladies and gentlemen.
Is that a new high?
It is a new high, I think. I think that's a new high for us.
I'm part of a record?
Yes, you're part of history here on GCP. You're part of history here on GCP. They're definitely here for Plan. So, and before we move forward to this story properly, I will close out the next poll I did here. And that poll was basically asking folks, Broken and on time, or delayed with less and less broken, because we're talking Bethesda. So less broken or broken and on time. And by and large, 89% of the voters said delay until ready, and only 10% says release it on time, even if it means broken. So there you go. By and large, although people complain, I think we're all in agreement here. Now,
I think
gentlemen,
Slow-Mo was the one that said release it on time.
so that he can have more smoke to billow.
Yeah.
So, gentlemen, let me ask you quickly, what did you guys see this interview? Did you guys hear the broad strokes? I will start with you, EverbornSaga. I know you pay attention to what Mr. Phil Spencer likes to say. There was a lot of drops here. There's a lot of little nuggets here talking about Hi-Fi Rush.
Halo show shade at the end too. I want to start with that.
There is Halo shade, and I will talk about that. We will actually diverge and do a little bit of on the reel when we talk about that Halo shade. But for now, let's keep it gaming for just for now, and just what were your broad strokes when you heard this interview being dropped on a Friday afternoon for some reason? It was very strange.
I thought it was. So whenever Phil comes out these days, you have to think it is there's some strategy behind it, right?
Always, yes.
And so what message was Phil trying to get across? If we relate it to Activision, because they were asked about Activision, that's the first thing that stuck out to me. Was that he said
confidence level,
he is more confident now than he was a year ago. Some people say that he is supposed to say that, and other people are arguing, well, maybe he came out to say that because he's trying to get ahead of the Monday morning news cycle of the leaks that are inevitably going to come from the EU dropping their statement of objections. I don't think it's that, but we'll continue there. Another big thing is that he acknowledged that water was wet and that 2022 was dry as hell.
He acknowledged water was wet and Xbox was dry. I just
he took that one on the chin too. He said that's my fault.
I don't know what else was he supposed to say.
Yeah,
the buck stops with him.
Matt Booty's fault.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean that was expected. No, I feel you, but like
Square style. You should have blamed the studios.
It's good to see him come out and take that on the chin.
Booty should have been off camera and just like it was his fault.
So he also talked about Halo and the future, and just reaffirming to people again that water is wet, and as long as there is an Xbox, there will be a Halo. But I guess that needed to be said because you have people in the community that think no one cares about Halo anymore, and that Halo should go and sit in a corner, which is patently ridiculous. But people say things anyway because they like hearing themselves talk. So then they talked about Last of Us, and something that stuck out to me.
And hold on, but understand that if you start talking about the Last of Us TV show, we will head into On the Reel. So be ready when you're talking about the TV show, because that will bring up different conversations. So if you still got gaming stuff you want to talk about, talk gaming, because as soon as you go on the Reel, the Last of Us TV show, I want to have an actual conversation about that show. So continue, sir.
So he did well just in relation to Halo. We can come to Last of Us in a second.
Sure.
But one thing that he said that was super interesting when asked about The Last of Us was that he thought it was so interesting that the game creators got to be in the room. It is almost so when you're listening to what he's not saying, but that he's trying to say, is almost like we didn't get to be in a room for Halo. I know Kiki Wolfkill was
this is room, my point, bro. You caught it. This is why, bro. Me and you. The first thing I thought when I saw that, I'm like, this is why he made that point. This is what took Halo so long. Like basically, he said it without saying it. He is saying that Halo had to walk so that Last of Us can climb and run and fly.
Well, no, a lot of people had to walk before Last of Us
sure, but they fought a lot of that. Well, but the point is, they fought a lot of that. Hey, our creatives should be in the room to fight with Halo and a bunch of their IPs long time ago with Hollywood, and they got dashed for it. And after all that has been said and done, it seems that those conversations have opened the door to allow for new creators to do.
That's different because Sony is a movie studio.
I was going to say Sony,
which is part and parcel of the conversation, of course.
And HBO distributed it,
of
so
course.
It's not like that's not the same.
So technically, had Sony had the Halo IP way back when and went through this process, they possibly could have gotten it done sooner because they speak Hollywood, whereas Microsoft did. But continue.
But again, you know, Riot Games are the ones that did Arcane, right? They did most of those things. But anyway, so that was super interesting. What the slanderous part of it was basically how she said without saying, like, look how good Last of Us is and look how trash Halo was. What do you feel about that?
Yes, she was really slanderous about it. I was like, seriously, what's good? Like, you may never get another interview again. What's that?
I didn't.
Towards the end of the interview, I was like, damn.
Yeah.
I would have took the mic off my chest.
It was a little bit much, for sure. It was a little bit much, for sure. Yes.
But because I think they're two very different shows to adapt. And I thought that
see, we're going into OnTheReel talk right now.
Anyway, so back to video games.
Well, before you finish, let me get Raiden Blade's last super chat because I think it relates to what you were discussing. Raiden Blade here with another £5 super chat saying, I have a thought. Marketing. We talk about Xbox all the time. It may be negative, it may be positive. We always talking about Xbox all year long. Maybe it's deliberate by Xbox. Go ahead, Everborn. What do you think? Maybe their faux pas are deliberate to keep y'all talking.
This guy gets it.
Yeah.
No, like they can't market it, but everybody's afraid of Game Pass and can't stop talking about it. Every time there's some Halo news, good or bad, it just dominates the entire discussion. So anyway.
Slow-mo getting wild in the chat as usual.
About the Phil interview. So, you know, him kind of, you know, trying to be sort of candid on what they didn't deliver on and what they're trying to do. And also about the team at Halo in saying, I'm going to let them announce what they need to announce. We're setting up the team to go forward. And he acknowledged that some of the rumored projects are true. Right? He said
I think the rumored thing. I think that was Tatanka probably. I think that was Tatanka, the rumored. When he said that, my brain went, certain affinities.
Certain affinity.
But again, Certain Affinity already announced that they're working on a Halo thing.
They did,
right?
Yeah, but not really.
That is announced.
They didn't announce it in kind of full bore to consumers.
It was a tweet.
Yeah, it was kind of like tangentially related. They didn't announce what it was. They didn't announce, you know, even though we have all the background because of Grubb and other folks, they just said we're working on some Halo thing, which realistically, if you think about it, Certain Affinity has been working on some Halo thing since Halo 3. So them saying that is not news, but continue.
Yeah, but then why would they say it?
You know,
they literally made news about it. Anyway,
possibly a way to hire people, but continue. Go ahead.
The point is, so, you know, what I hope is happening at 343 is sometimes you have to take a step back to step forward. So if they're going to try to rebuild the team and have a more cohesive vision and they get, you know, you take the short-term hit, you make sure you make Infinite whole, and now you build a new team that's around taking Halo where we all want it to go. That's, you know, that's what needs to happen. So we kind of have to like let that process play out. And I don't know, like people who are still playing Halo, what footing is Infinite on right now? Not the campaign people like myself, because it's nowhere if you're a campaign person. But
if you're a campaign person, people, it's dead, ladies and gentlemen, dead.
If we're not gonna have that argument right now, but I want to know from the chat.
I do that. Halo I do that because EverbornSaga hates the word dead, especially how I use it. So I had to do
because dead means dead. But so Slow-Mo says the multiplayer is great. Yeah. Has Forge changed anything? Is there any excitement?
Oh yeah,
for season 3
bro.
coming?
Even me, who's a casual viewer of the Halo platform, rightly so. Forge has changed the game. Showed up, gave people new excitement. There are worlds that are built in Forge that you're just like mouth agape. How did they do that? It's really galvanized the audience to Halo again. So if you're all about the multiplayer and about the crazy levels and all the things you can do. Forge has saved
what
it.
They've been able to do.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like I see creations all the time. People post all the time on my timeline about new stuff that somebody's made, and it's amazing what they've done with Forge. You know, and unfortunately, it's not getting the recognition I feel like it should, just due to everything surrounding.
Well, I think because if you want to bring people back to Halo, you need a campaign drop, and I don't understand why that is. Like, a campaign drop will bring tens of millions of people back, and now you have Forge.
And what did they do? What's the first thing they did? They killed their campaign team. So I'm just like, head scratch.
But anyway, the other thing is, I do think it's significant that he says he's more confident after talking to regulators. I think we're going to talk about this later because you got that Frank Shaw tweet that we want to add on. So I guess I'll save this for there. Yeah. But so he also talked about the shadow drop and how effective it was, and how they didn't know that it was going to be effective, and how their distribution model, which is Game Pass, allows them to take more chances like that, right? Yep. So whether it is a Pentiment, whether it's an As Dust Falls, whether it's a Grounded, and now we see. Although I think this game would have hit whether or not you had Game Pass.
Yeah, I believe that. You could tell that the game was a solid game from jump, right? And they don't know how people receive it, but still, the game itself was very quality. You know, you since they released it, has there even been a patch? Absolutely not. It's solid.
No, no. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I just love the energy around that. It really made me feel like those 360 days when anything could come out with that Hi-Fi Rush. But so he talked about how they didn't know it was going to be a success, and that's why I said I agree with Slow-Mo earlier. Yeah, they didn't know it was going to be a success, but the team wanted to try it, and luckily it didn't leak. And so everybody got to have that.
It actually did leak. It did leak. We knew we knew the name Hi-Fi Rush from jump.
The date.
The date didn't leak. Okay.
Oh yeah,
It did leak that they said there was going to be there though, because even Grubb said that. Like, he said that Hi-Fi Rush would be there. He said that, right? Didn't know that it was going to be released that day, but that was permeating the rumor mill. So it is what it is. Let's continue down, and I guess, he's talking about cancel culture a little bit. He spoke about in this interview about how people are quick to snipe each other. He talked a bit about 343 and how he still has faith in the studio as a whole, keeping the Halo moniker.
Studio's not whole anymore.
But yeah, sure. Absolutely.
He has faith in the portion that is left.
Absolutely, and Raiden Blade be continuing his reign on this show today with another £5 super chat saying 343i is working on current story, but Halo universe is massive. Give other studio stories from that universe so they have many books to use for them. Bro, I completely agree with you, sir. I think we are about due for another ODST level game. I said this on another show that I was on. To me, what you do right now, and actually, no, I said this when I was on PTK's show, when I was on the Shop podcast last week. What you do right now is you put the Master Chief himself away for now, because it's the whole story around Infinite has gotten a little bit toxic, right? We don't want that to be the narrative that prevails for the Halo franchise. So you leave if you're not going to be investing in more campaign developers. First a person you reach out to are the people head of animation at Netflix or Amazon, right? We want to build out that world. I want more stories in that world, even if it's not gaming, right? Because right now, as we've seen and as has been talked about, they'll be most likely tapping other studios for assistance, just like they're doing with Joanna Dark, right? They'll be tapping into other sources to be able to then get that game to the finish line. Same thing with potentially another Halo campaign, whenever that may be. It may be next generation. Who knows? I get all that. But in the short term, for single player Halo lovers like me and Mr. EverbornSaga, it would be awesome if there's someplace else to get our Halo fix. And I don't know about season 2, of the Halo TV show. I suspect they need to tap other sources to keep the Halo universe in the zeitgeist still, right? So eventually get back to the games, eventually get back to the campaign, but after all of these other media has permeated the zeitgeist and people have liked it. Got to be good though, because if it's not, then we're back at square one. Everborn, what were you gonna say?
No, the Black John in the chat talks about sort of smaller campaign outings like Hive Busters, and I think that would be great.
Yeah.
I thought that's what Infinite was going to be.
That's what I thought as well too.
Several chapters or episodes. You keep it high production value, but short in
small
length,
little
so
stories.
That keeps the budget down.
Absolutely.
And that's how you can bring people
back.
That's what they should be doing to introduce these seasons. But what the hell do we know?
Exactly. Well, okay. So let's transition into what you were going to talk about before, right? And in doing that, let me read off what was said, and let's talk about the little slander that you were talking about here. So IGN goes, and we're still talking about this interview. IGN goes, apologies for asking about your competitors, but one thing I'm wondering about is if you've been paying attention to the Last of Us TV show on HBO. And he said, yes. Well, it's fantastic. They've done a great job in adapting a fantastic video game to the TV screen. And kudos to the team and all the teams that worked on it. Obviously, the foundation of this is that the work that Naughty Dog did to build the franchise. I won't read the whole thing because it gets a little long in the tooth, but basically he throws praise at them and throws praise at Neil Druckmann for being able to be a part of the project. But what he also does, which I thought was very fun and very interesting that he threaded that needle, was also throwing out the tiniest of digs at those that still use television and proper media as a barometer of success, right? The Last of Us is an IP that stands on its own by itself and does great things by itself. So we shouldn't need to go and ask the Hollywood gatekeepers if it's okay to transition this to a different medium. It should be able to stand on its own 2 feet. That's me contextualizing. But what he said basically said that in the, hey, we look jealously at those other platforms, hoping that we would one day be looked at in the same kind of high level light.
But Last of Us is also it's very narrative.
It's a game.
I was
going to
say
about a show.
All you had to do was take out the button prompts.
Yes. Well,
take out
the button prompts and some of the action set pieces.
And that's a real low level, right? That's low hanging fruit. But that you?
No, it's wifey cooking. Don't worry. Keep
okay. No, we're good. Okay, I want to make sure. So listen, and that wasn't a dig at The Last of Us.
Yeah.
I do want to make sure we're clear here. Mm-hmm. I know the three of us are. I'm pretty sure everybody in chat as well. And I didn't understand this when I first saw it.
Okay.
Right. Like I knew The Last of Us probably was going to be a great show. Right. Mm-hmm. Like you could kind of clearly see if you played the game for any length, you already could see they just need to just put it on TV, get rid of all the game stuff.
I mean, they use the same camera angles. It's not, again,
same color saturation, same camera angles, same dialogue in certain instances. And let's get into that full proper review conversation of that thing.
But we will in a second, though. And I think this is important because, again, we can hold two thoughts in the same at the
walk
same time.
Walk and chew gum at the same time. Yes.
The Halo show.
And real quick, keep that thought. I see Pixel Slapper in the chat saying he'll subscribe when it's over. In the short term, if you want to check out episode 1 real quick. Oh Lord, it happens. Forgive me, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to check out episode 1, HBO actually released the whole episode 1 on YouTube. You can watch it legally without subscribing to HBO yet. But continue, Everborn. I didn't mean to cut your thoughts.
So the thing is, and Last of Us is done great, and they put the game creator in the right position, and they partnered him with a super talented filmmaker that was part of Chernobyl. All that's true, right? And the Halo show leaves a lot to be desired. They got some of the visuals right in terms of this is what a Spartan looks like, this is what the weapons look and sound like.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot there that just strained credulity in terms of basic storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And you could tell, again, we're talking sci-fi, we're talking aliens and lasers, so it is a big budget thing to do.
Yeah.
But
to be fair, that comparison would be a little salty. Yeah.
That was a point I was trying to make. And sorry, and I just finished my point real quick, Everborn.
Go ahead.
Real quick, Everborn. Sorry. So that was the point I was making. I know where you were going, Everborn, because that's what I was trying to set up. And this is an alley-oop. I'm gonna just throw you the lob. You could catch it or whatever. But essentially, these are two completely different types of TV shows. Like, and I know you were just alluding to that point that like they're not really even comparable. Like if I sat down and I was on, doing some type of movie TV review, I'm not looking at The Last of Us, looking at that the same way I would look at the Halo TV show, right? I'm not looking for the same type of visual cues and the same type of narrative story. Like there are some things that are, maybe cross the board, but I didn't understand some of the discourse because it wasn't up to that standard. I'm like, wait a minute, it's a completely different type of TV show.
Sure.
I don't compare Star Trek to, I don't know, House on the Prairie. I'm not like, we're not, you know what I mean? Like they're two completely different goals,
on the point of slander to the Halo show, Everborn, finish your thought. But I do have some numbers that might be a little bit eyebrow raising for those who think the Halo show is such a.
I'm glad you brought that part up.
Such a what do you call it? The crap on the shoe of The Last of Us.
Season 2. It
couldn't
be if it
sure, but there are numbers that are very interesting. Everborn, finish your statement.
So again, Halo show leaves a lot to be desired, but the idea that that there are two completely different animals, and it is easier to adapt The Last of Us because of what the source material is and how they're adapting it, and it was designed to be a long form narrative story, right? Halo first and foremost was designed to be a game. The lore is there. It could be done. You put the right people in power to do it. Yes, I think we can talk about how Halo needs to be better without comparing it to The Last of Us, just because they're
let's be real here. Let's be fair. You know why the comparison's being made?
Yeah,
because they're video game. First off, there are video game properties being made into shows, which brings them into the Venn diagram that is close, and it also happens to be one of the biggest IPs from the biggest platform holder compared to the other big IP from the other platform. Come on, the comparisons make themselves. Even if they're not fair, it's fair to see them because come on now. We don't live in a world where Doom and Prince of Persia are the only ones that are out there. You know what I mean? Like
what people are comparing is not necessarily like for like, but they're saying look at the quality and care taking on this one versus the quality.
Yeah. So let me put a thought. Let me put a thought out. Let me put a thought out about that. Just a real quick thought out. And it's to the point that you guys have already made, because like we know, and those who paid attention, there have been many video game adaptations made and tried over the years, and most of them are trash. We know this, right? My thought on this and Halo, how Halo became what it became to Paramount is a long reported thing that there's you can look it up. There's lots of information about Microsoft walked in the door. The first time they walked in the door into Hollywood, they literally had people dressed as Master Chief walking in, dropping the scripts. They wanted to walk into Hollywood and say, "Make this." Right?
Well, that was dumb.
Well, hold on. Let me get the point. And Hollywood was like, "Yeah, you're rich. Yeah, you're tech. You're a big guy. You run things in that other pond. In this pond, you're nothing. So go away." And they've been doing that back and forth with Microsoft for a long time.
Whoa.
Here's my thought. Here's what I bring to the congregation, and you guys can tell me if I'm ridiculous or not. Could it be, I personally believe that Microsoft's back and forth with Hollywood did a lot of work to break through some of the cracks that was stopping Hollywood from taking these other creators seriously. I wouldn't say that's all there is to it. I believe that there's some of that, but I believe the reason why this cracked through as much as it did, and yes, let's not take Netflix and all those their great their offerings. Let's not give them short shrift. But I think the reason why Sony was able to thread the needle that Microsoft couldn't is exactly what you guys are describing now. When Sony comes with their properties, in the world of 2020, 2019 or 2018, whenever they started this project, right? When they come to this project, they are, like you said, a movie house. So first and foremost,
Sony's
Hollywood
not coming to
them.
anyone; they're making it.
Exactly. So they are respected in that environment. They will not, when they say we're letting Neil Druckmann run it and direct certain episodes, they will not get the same get the hell out of here that Microsoft most likely got when they wanted to dictate terms, because this is Sony that we're talking about here, right? In addition to the fact that
terms.
Well,
there's no terms to dictate when you're making it yourself.
Well, but you can't say there's no terms because they don't own HBO. There's a negotiation there.
No. There's not, right? They make the show, they produce it themselves, and then they sell it to HBO to distribute.
Well, they hadn't finished the show and then distributed to HBO after. If you read the logistics, they started from jump with HBO. They didn't make it and then sell it to HBO. They started from jump
that's
in the writer's room with HBO.
At who's producing it, and HBO is not going to go to Sony and be like, you have to do this and that, right?
Sure.
So you just put the creatives in the room and they make it. Here's the thing. You have to blame Apple.
Okay.
Right?
Explain.
People in Hollywood, they use Macs, right? When you use a Mac, a lot of those people, you talk to anybody in that field, and they just hate PCs.
Oh, of course.
They do their editing, they do their designs, they do all of that stuff on Mac.
You're talking to me. You know I know what you're talking about.
So these are people who look at Microsoft with disdain because they've been indoctrinated by
They look at Microsoft as the Excel and Windows 95 peddlers.
Microsoft walks into Hollywood, they're just like, Steve Jobs told me to hate them. I'm not listening to what they're doing. And then Microsoft walks in the beginning with people wearing like Spartan suits. And these Hollywood people,
this is my point,
respected in the first place.
Exactly. It took Sony to break through that because Microsoft never had a chance to jump.
I don't think it took Sony to break through it. I think Sony is Hollywood.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you on that. But what I'm saying to you is they are not putting it on the PlayStation subscription service. They're not putting it on the PlayStation video games video service that they used to have with Powers, right? Because Powers they did the whole thing themselves. They released it. It was a crap, right? We all saw that. It came out and it flopped. They made this with HBO. They needed HBO's clout. They needed HBO's name, if nothing else. Yes, they did. Because if they, what did Paramount do
Why do you keep talking about Sony like they're breaking into Hollywood for the first time?
I'm not saying they're breaking into Hollywood. What I'm saying is because they are Hollywood, they can partner with Hollywood to release their things, and it's far more high echelon.
Hollywood, you are Hollywood. You are Hollywood. Just we need to understand that.
I understand that, but until they release it on until they release it on the Sony subscription service,
but there is no Sony subscription service.
That's my point. You can't then tell me
that's a moot point. That has nothing to do.
Let
with
me
what
make
we're
my
talking
statement.
about.
I'm saying you can't tell me that HBO was not a factor in the room when this show was being made, and they were just sold. Here, take it. We're done with it. Take it and buy it because we're done with it. We are Sony. We made it, and all you do is just display it. That's not what happened here. And there's a lot of reports that says so. To the point where many of the let me finish my point. To the point where a lot of the people who have written about it even actually have smoke for HBO for allowing Neil Druckmann to get as much into this project as he did. Right? They worked together. This wasn't a Sony made it and then HBO showed it thing, right? And let's be clear here. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not. I'm saying that's a good thing. And I'm saying that because of this, more of this should be allowed, right? So if you are an auteur, if Kojima makes a TV show, he should be part of the creation process on the TV show side as well. And that has not been allowed until now. Right? That's all I'm saying. I'm saying that because of all the things that you're saying that you're right about, Sony is Hollywood. Sony has an entrenched foothold in Hollywood. They have the Rolodex of Hollywood, if you will. So they basically took the left hand, which is the gaming arm, and spoke to the right hand, which is the Hollywood arm. And because of that, it's heading way further than anyone has ever gone before with this kind of medium, right? All I'm saying is this is a plus, and it should be touted, and just that's the same way Phil Spencer did, right? He basically touted, hey, look, they let Neil in the room, and Neil showed his talent off, and he was a great creative in games, and he's a great creative here as well. And more should be allowed in that ilk. That's all I'm saying, right? And if more of that was allowed, it could make the Halo game a lot better, because Halo game was not allowed to have creatives in the room that were from the game space. That's all the difference is here.
That's not really true, because
because of Kiki Wolfkill, but she didn't make the games. And she's just an exec producer.
Pixel Bit G is saying he thinks I'm missing the point, but that's exactly what my point was from the beginning.
Let's see what
they
Pixel
are
says.
two different shows.
And by the way, we're behind on super chat, so let me catch up, because we're not going to be those people. We're going to make sure we read every super chat that is given to us before we continue our heated discussion. So again, we're putting out really great content for you folks. Please hit the like button if you haven't done so. We're around 113, 115 people in the room. I still see about 70 likes. So please, as they say, wash your feet when you get into the house. Wipe your feet off. There's a beer in the fridge. You hear my wife is cooking. I'm sure you've heard that. So please hit that like button. We appreciate you. Raiden Blade. I saw a super chat from Raiden Blade, so we'll post that here. He's still talking a little bit about the 343 stuff, but he says problem is too many chefs in the kitchen at 343. This is why I like that what did he say?
Gallagher.
This is why I like what D. Gallagher has done with Perfect Dark, and kick those out and stick with those with your ideas. I understand. It's not. I guess what you're saying is it's not a democracy at that point. One person decides the vision, the rest of them help implement it, and it looked like Perfect Dark was not heading down that path. I agree with you. So we have Dorian Gray on here with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Dorian, for being here. He says it doesn't make a difference how good Halo is. Arcane was better than both of them, and people.
This is a fact.
That is true.
People act like it never happened. People act like it never happened. Talking about breaking
Arcane
curses
and Edge Runner.
Arcane was the truth. Absolutely. To this day, I still think Arcane has not been. Their record hasn't been broken. Edge Runner comes close, but Arcane has not been broken. And then of course,
and don't forget Sonic 2.
Oh, stop it. We have Pixel Bit G in here going, The Last of Us is based on current world uses, and uses mostly practical effects. Halo is far in the future and needs a lot more CG to make it
Halo's not even on Earth.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, most definitely. And although that is a strong argument, I do think what folks say when they mean that comparison is about the care taken, not necessarily about the money on screen. Right. It seems like there was more care taken with The Last of Us. Let me get one last super chat, and I will let you speak, PTK. Raiden Blade with a final super chat here. £2 super chat saying Hollywood understands Hollywood. Xbox and Microsoft are outsiders. You made my point far more eloquently than I did, sir. PTK, what were you trying to say?
Well, that last point, that would be true, but Hollywood's not even good at making its own movies most of the time. So, but anyway, that's a whole nother point. But no, so the whole thing about Halo, my question would be, can we just rewind and go back? What did we expect a Halo show to be in the first place? What expectation did we have? Because I think it stems from that too. I don't know what I wanted from a Halo.
We expected it to be the Mandalorian, apparently.
That's all I'm asking is, did we expect it to be straight up source material and just a 1-to-1? Because that's essentially what Last of Us is, about as close as you can get to the source material, and then you just translate that into a movie. Would you guys have been okay with that? Or TV show, would that have been okay?
So that's not the problem though with the Halo show, right? Well, let me explain, right? Mm-hmm. I had, especially they said listen, we're doing our own sub canon. This is the silver team instead of blue team or whatever. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a problem with it. I didn't have a problem with his taking his helmet off. I'll argue that to the death. But narratively, when we talk about the fact that he's gonna like sleep with this prisoner of war that he met 2 minutes ago. Now he's in love with her, right? That kind of stuff, narratively, that doesn't make sense, and it says you're not taking this thing
this is what we mean by care, right? Care with the IP, right?
When you listen, there's something called verisimilitude, right? Where you set up the rules to this world, right? You get that. Right, so whatever you want to bend physics, you want to bend reality, whatever you want to say, we're in the future, aliens exist, lasers, whatever. Now, once you set those rules up, you need to adhere to those rules, and things need to be believable within the framework that you have created. You can't have people survive because they have plot armor.
I'm sorry. Forgive me. I'm taking an executive decision and cutting you off because Slow-Mo Backslap needs to leave the show, but he refuses to leave the show until he drops a final bomb, ladies and gentlemen. And he says with a $10 super chat, thank you, good sir. I hope you have a good rest of your day. He says, gotta run, but some quick slander. Hit the like button, people. The more likes this stream gets, the closer EverbornSaga gets to getting a real PC. Too bad we can't buy him better taste in movies and games. Sad face.
Slander on the way
Thank
out.
you,
Jesus
Mr.
Christ.
Slow-Mo Backslap. Always a pleasure having you on the show.
You know what? I'm
sir.
going to take the money from that super chat and go buy an old Sonic game. Now, this is the thing.
Go ahead, man.
But so there are things that it did, like the CG in the ending of it was dumb. You could see that they were trying to get from point A to point B and just kind of throwing in imagery from the games in there. And so while I was on board with it in the beginning, and it did have moments where it shined, like the world is so big and the lore is just the lore is so vast and all that that, you know, when you watch things like The Expanse, you know what a Halo show could be.
Sure. Yes.
And this has not so far been that. Now, were those growing pains? I don't know.
We shall see in season 2.
Bokeem Woodbine's character, which was a joke.
Yeah.
Right? You had the
I
girl
mean,
that
he
was
started with a
him,
spark, but he never really caught anything. It's like they started, they started something interesting. I was like, hey, you know, because let's be clear here, you know, and we're not going to give any spoilers because PTK hasn't seen The Last of Us yet, right? And like many of us in this community, we'll wait till the last episode and then binge it, which is fine too. But they started with Bokeem's character. They started off the beaten path, which is unlike the stories, right? Which is unlike the games, I should say, the game's narrative, which is similar to what The Last of Us has also done. There are certain threads that are different than what you're used to, but the difference in what we see in The Last of Us is they are clearly, you know, because they have one of the writers in the room of the game, they go, okay, so we want to do this. How does that work in that world? And you can tell Neil shapes every kind of off the beaten path a narrative that doesn't comport with the game itself and still makes it work expertly well. This is the best filling of gaps I've ever seen.
I just still think that's
you don't agree.
Different thing. There's a different skill set required to do an Halo adaptation. And again, I think you can be in a sci-fi world and still be grounded in some form. Yeah. So in terms of asking how things work in this world, I think they did a lot of that in the Halo show. But the people telling the story, take out the fact that it's a Halo show, take out the Spartan aspect of it, take out all of that. As a human story,
they lost a little bit the thread.
Jesus Christ.
Well, but to your point of the people telling the story being maybe less than, you do understand, and of course we brought a lot of context to this. The Halo show has gone through a lot of hands, many skilled hands to get where it got to, right? So during the initial phase, those people who could have treated this project with the reverence it deserves hit the wall of Halo versus Microsoft versus Hollywood versus how this is going to be and creative differences. Many hands have touched it and went, oh, you don't want let me do it the way we should? and left it. What we ended up with were those who were okay with all of the bodies on the floor continuing to work on that medium. So yes, I hear you, and you're right. But I suspect that many quarterbacking. Yes, we always do. That's what we do here.
And I think that again. Putting Neil in a room where he directs his games as though they are movies and you have all of that to work on, it is a different animal altogether than taking the lore of Halo and turning it into
I hear you. I hear you on that.
I hear you on that. What do you call it?
I just think all of that is related and combined. The context of how Halo became the show you see and what it did for video games being translated to TV shows and or games, they are all related. And that's where all of that matters to where we are now. Basically, what I'm saying is you needed the Tesla Model X before the S before you get the 3.
But we also don't know what season 2 is going to be.
We don't. You needed the Valve Index. And you needed the HTC Vive until you
but this is the problem with The Last of Us. This is the problem with The Last of Us, and it happened in the video games too.
Okay.
You look at The Last of Us, and we're talking about The Last of Us like it is like patient zero, and it's because of The Last of Us now that we can fly.
No, of course not.
There has been a lot of
unfortunately for The Last of Us, other games have gotten there before it. Of course, yes.
Right. So let's not pretend that there are not other adaptations out there, and The Last of Us is just one more in a long line of what are becoming
it's not a long line.
Adaptations.
It's not. You can still count them on one hand, can't you?
Yeah, you could argue. I mean, from a quality standpoint, I mean that's all subjective, right? But I guess if us three having this discussion, yeah, I'd say there's far and few in between, right?
You can still count them on one hand.
It's more regular now, and to be honest, it more happens in the animation space, not really in the live action stuff too often. It happens more in the animation space than it does in live action as far as the translating, because video games just translate better animated. It's just easier to create something like, and that's where I know you mentioned it earlier. That's where I would have went with Halo. Like I'm straight animation with Halo. Like I went straight to animation, Edge Runners, like you know what I mean, somewhere in that realm. And just I could have done all of that fantastical, cool stuff, and you know what I mean, and still stuck to the and took all the care I needed to, and still had the input, you know, that I needed to have. Like so, you know, that's where I thought that they would go with it. You know, I thought that space would be cool. I love the live action stuff too. I know that that's so hard to convey.
No, but I mean, listen, if you watch, like, look at Westworld in the second season and beyond, and things like that, right? Like you can do sci-fi, big budget, still be grounded, and have that look. It's just, and you can even look at the Picard show on this, also on Paramount.
Everything you're saying there, Everborn, is what tells me, because of everything you're saying, everything you're describing right now is what feeds my thoughts on the reason why we got the Halo show we got is because of the back and forth between creatives and how Microsoft wanted to thread the needle with that IP. And because of that, I bet you, what was it, 5 or 6 hands touched it and then left that project before we got what we got, right? To your point, Everborn, many, and you pointed them out, the Expanse. I've seen every single episode of The Expanse. I love that show. And before The Expanse, it was the show that was a movie, a TV show that was redone. I forget the name of it right now, with Cylons and all of that. All of that, the gritty sci-fi. People in the chat, show with Cylons. Give me the name of that. I'll remember. I'm sure you'll be able to remind me. But like, a lot of these companies come to these Battlestar. Yeah, the newer Battlestar, not the old 70s, 80s Battlestar, but the newer Battlestar. Also spoke the same gritty language. Also spoke the same grounded sci-fi that what do you call it? The Expanse took. Right, literally, The Expanse stole Battlestar Galactica's thunder.
The Expanse did start off very campy, though.
Of course, it did, and then it got a bit more complicated.
Why, you know, with the success that season 1, because more people watched Halo than have watched The Last of Us.
This is where I was going to go. Clear. This is what that was the next port of call.
Let me just say this, and then you can go there. You would imagine that they're going to have a considerably larger budget since it's a proven quantity for season 2. And we can hope that the story becomes more complex
as it goes along.
As it goes along. And I think that there's that. So I'm not like writing off the Halo show. The Halo show can go to great places. I just think that there's some things that you wish they would have done differently in season one.
Real quick, and we'll move forward here because and I think yourself, Everborn, and myself should just touch on just lightly episode 1 and 2 before we move on to the big gaming topic that I want to talk about, which is the direct. But just to make your point, the second episode has hit the highest of all the episodes, which is 5.7 million views, and that's episode 2. I think episode 1 was like 4.
Well, that's opening night. As they go out throughout the week.
No, this is episode 2. Yeah. This is episode 2.
No. I'm saying opening night.
Yeah.
The more
the seasons, the more the days go on, the more viewers watch. Right. So episode 101 I think it was like 4.5 or 4.4 or something like that. I saw it in an article, I forgot. But needless to say, to thread that needle to what you were describing, Halo's first initial numbers, which everyone was like completely losing their minds, it netted Paramount Plus, what was it, 4.9 million? The first
No. It was above 4.9.
Oh yeah, they don't show the numbers. Yeah, you're right. They don't. So, the Paramount Plus will never give you the numbers, but the last watermark, the last big mark for Paramount Plus was 1883 in December, and that was 4.9 million. So if now they're saying that Halo has set a standard, that means it's above 4.9 million. So as much smoke as Halo has been getting, and rightfully so, based on all the stuff we've been talking about, right? They still did get a huge amount of viewers, right? And I guess I'm saying this just to thread the needle that we're in a bubble, and because of that, we may think that this thing is as big. It may receive bigger numbers in our Twitter timeline than it maybe deserves. I still think the show is amazing, but just to thread that needle, there's a show that you guys have heard of, Velma. I don't know if you've heard of Velma. Velma has gotten terrible reviews, terrible reviews, but it did end up beating The Last of Us in opening night. So, while we are very much balls and strikes paying attention to what is the game translating into the show and how well they threaded the needle, and I'll be right here on it. I'm right here with every other gamer. I think it's exceptionally well done. I think it's awesome, right? But at the end of the day, the larger audience may not necessarily be looking at it the way we are. And I see Mr. Neo Mental in here saying, boo. That is bad. Yes, absolutely it is. Mr. PTK Blam, sir, yes, sir, hearing these numbers. I know you have not watched the show just yet. It seems like it's setting the world on fire, but in the real world, it's kind of competitive with others. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, right, we do this Twitter thing a lot. We're all so close to Twitter and social media that we feel like that's the entire world. We feel like when somebody puts a tweet out, the information we get's there. Like everybody knows this stuff, and that's not the case, right? And so we're still a small community, quote unquote, right? As Twitter has I don't know how many active users at this dang point it has, but it's 100 millions of active users at this point. So it feels like there's a lot going on when in fact there's not much. But just regarding The Last of Us, I'm happy. Like I said, so anything that pushes video games forward, I'm completely all for. Like, you know what I mean? I have no issues with The Last of Us. It was a phenomenal game. When I played it, I knew it would be a phenomenal TV show. Like, you could see it just throughout the game.
Yeah, it's like they made a game to be a phenomenal TV show.
You could see it. I said it back then when it came out, when it dropped on PS3 after playing it. Yeah, it's a great game. I could definitely see this being a TV show and or a movie. I actually thought they were going to do a movie first rather than a TV show. So it's kind of cool that they did it. They decided to go the TV show route. But like I said, anything that makes it easier for more video game adaptations to happen, and these Hollywood to take chances on video game adaptations is positive to me. Now, I haven't seen episode 1 or 2, but like you said, it's pretty close to the source material, so I probably have seen it.
It's like I have seen it. It's like 98% close to the source material. Yes.
So I have seen it, quote unquote. My only issue, and this is another question that I have about The Last of Us, Would that ever become a problem because so many people have played the game and they kind of know what's going to happen? Is that ever going to be a wall that people is it, or is it just because it's in this form rather than a video game? Even though I know what's going to happen, just because it's in TV show form and not video game, it's okay? Or does that ruin like the excitement?
I'll be honest with you. As a man who played the games, I played all of the games, right, and the DLC, and I'm actually looking to replay it on PS5. I just hadn't done it yet. After this season ends, I'm going to replay season 1 on PS5. But I will tell you, I knew Sarah was going to die. Spoiler alert for The Last of Us. I knew Sarah was going to die, but and I won't spoil the Last of Us TV show for you. They filled out Sarah. Right, where you start with Sarah in the game is not where you start with Sarah on the show.
Okay, so they've thought about
they filled out Sarah, right? And I knew from day one where she was going, and there've been some race changes with them, right? Joel is Mexican, obviously Pedro Pascal, right? So his daughter is also like complexion changed a little bit compared to the Sarah you're used to in the show. And just so you know, for me, the Sarah they used in the show looks so much like the spitting image of my daughter like 10 years from now, right? So I knew what was about to happen. I knew it all through the whole day, and there's a good filling in that the show does that the game didn't. And still, it hit me like a ton of bricks, no dry eye in the house, bro. No word of a lie. No word of a lie.
They still executed it, but that goes back
no
to
word of
that
a
was
lie. Yes,
that goes back to the care that's taken. You know, if they do those things tastefully, you're able to pull that off, even though you know there are things going on. You know, so it's kind of cool to see the TV show thrive the way it has, and I knew it. Like I said, as soon as they announced the TV show, the timeline lit up. Everybody was super excited because, like I said, if you play the game, you know that it probably wouldn't take a whole lot to translate into a TV show or that type, you know, that particular medium, just because of the way the game is made. Like a heavy story, heavy narrative driven, you know, lots of action sequences, lots of, cut scenes, things like that to tie everything in. So I'm happy. Like I said, at the end of the day, I don't play, one side of the fence, the other in this instance, because this is a win for the gaming industry, right? This benefits the gaming industry as a whole, you know what I mean? All together. So I'm all for, The Last of Us doing as well. And
So yeah, real quick, just so folks know, Mr. EverbornSaga had to step out real quick, and the reason why EverbornSaga had to step out is because he's just gotten some bad news. He just said, so he had to step away from. Yeah, he just had to step away for a moment. The show must go on, and we will continue down the path, but we will talk to EverbornSaga. I hope everything's all good with him. He had to step away. He said he just got some news he had to go deal with, family news. So shout out to you, good sir. I hope all continues to be well. But continue, sir, what you were saying about The Last of Us.
Oh no, well, just like I said, essentially this is a win for and shout out to Everborn too, man. I hope everything is well with you, brother, and the family and everything. But this is a win for the gaming industry. So my issue with, and this is what we don't do as gamers enough, we need to all celebrate this win because it benefits all of us. I get you're on one side of the fence or the other. We don't take our wins as a industry enough, like together. We always try and like parse up the W, right? Try and cut the W up. No. Yep. We need to take this W as gamers.
Yep.
Because this is a huge W.
Hi-Fi Rush is great, but it wasn't made when they bought the company, so it can't be credited to them.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
All the ridiculousness. Yeah.
Let's take this W as gamers. Like, we don't have to cut it up. This is not some pie or cake that we need to separate and chop up. This is a W for all of us, and I get it. Like, it's gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like, you people prefer one console or the other, whatever the case may be. But this, particularly what we're talking about, Last of Us, this is a W for all of us because this should, hopefully, Hollywood sees this and says, you know what? They came to us a couple months ago with some video game, but we might need to take a second look at that. You know what I mean? Like maybe there's something there. Maybe this is a new thing, and it's all kind of started the last couple years with these video game adaptations on Netflix hitting, Arcane hitting, getting all the nominations, damn near winning like Oscars and stuff, all type of crazy awards that was getting. Then Edge Runners hitting, and it's kind of started this trend where I feel like these companies, Hollywood's realized, holy shit, video games actually can work in this space, in the movie and film space, right? They actually can work. It's not just some one-off. This can be a regular thing. So like I said, I haven't seen the episodes, but I played the game. The game was phenomenal. I'm glad it's doing as well, and I know it's going to continue to do as well. Mm-hmm. And hopefully, like I said, we see more of this in the coming, few years.
Absolutely. And I will say, because Everborn is not here, we wanted to talk lightly about episode 1 and 2, but since PTK hasn't seen it yet, I will just leave it saying this is the game to TV show adaptation that gamers have always wanted, right? Arcane showed that you can take source material, flip it a different way as long as you respect it, and people will love it, right? And Dorian Gray's in the chat pointed out correctly that Arcane won 2 Emmys, and well-deserved, absolutely.
Yep, well-deserved.
Right? And then, of course, they hit you again with Edge Runners, with Cyberpunk, and showed you that, as long as you care about that source material and you pour over the original source material, you'll ultimately be able to produce something, even if it's either beat for beat related or kind of tangentially related. You can still create something that will be that gamers and non-gamers alike will enjoy, right? So to that end, I think this is the closest that we gamers have ever gotten to seeing our source material respected in that way. It's very difficult to get that done. And that's why I kept bringing up the context of Halo. I feel like for the time, right? This was in early 2000s.
Oh, way early.
A different
Peter
Microsoft.
Jackson had it for a long time. Remember? That was the thing at one point.
Exactly. Yeah. It was a different Microsoft. We lived in a world where X-Men were just like Wolverine and the X-Men, and he was 6 foot tall, even though Wolverine's a 4 foot character. We lived in a world where a lot of that past context stopped video games from getting the respect they deserved, right? When they were being adapted. And anytime you brought that as a video game company to these companies, they looked at you like, okay, well, thank you for giving us the material. Now step back and let us do what we do, right? Yeah. And every time you fight, that's where, when they do it by themselves, it doesn't turn out real well. When they do it in conjunction with others, it doesn't turn out real well. We've seen that with Ubisoft. We've seen that with, a few others. This is the first time, and this is what I was saying to Everborn. I feel like it took a company that had both feet in both gaming and in media production, being Sony, to get them, Hollywood in general, to allow someone like a Neil Druckmann to have a seat at the table proper.
Yep.
And him having that seat at the table proper translated to awesome translation. Yep. So I'm really, really happy with what The Last of Us 1 and 2 look like.
Kudos to Sony. Kudos to Naughty Dog. They did a great
absolutely.
job.
And I don't know how you're planning on watching this. Are you planning on waiting and then binging it? Or are you planning on like watching it piece by piece?
No, I have all those apps and the HBO Maxes, and we have Netflix and Hulu and all that stuff.
That stuff.
I'll probably just watch it at some point, like randomly. I just throw it on and watch it. Like I said, I just haven't gotten around to watching it at this point in time, but I definitely want to check it out. Like I said, because just to be honest with you guys, a lot of you guys have just been talking about how good it is and some of the differences here and some of the more nuanced things, like you said about Sarah and some of the other things, how they deal with those on TV compared to how they dealt with them in the game. That's kind of actually making me want to watch it more at this point.
It's great.
I thought it was just a one-for-one. Yeah,
it is really good. Like what they do with Tess, some people are kind of cautious about Tess. I think Tess is boss. She does a great job. Like, if you play the games, characters are going to come and go, right? They're not going to come back because that's, the game, right? So they're not. So when they're there, they have to make a very good impression, and man, do they make a good impression. Oh, yeah. Sarah makes an amazing impression. Tess makes an amazing impression. And then they're gone, right? So it tells you, to me, like it's a weird analogy I use all the time. If you want to know how good a car is made, look at the cup holders. If they spend a lot of time on the cup holders, it tells you they spend a lot of time on the car. And it looks like I wouldn't call them throwaway characters, but the characters that are going to die, and they're going to die, are still given so much love and attention and care and really, really fleshing them out so that when it ultimately does happen the way you want it to happen, it's just like a gut punch. It's absolutely amazing. So, I wish I was you, sir, like picking a time when it's all said and done and just watching it from scratch. You're going to love it. It's absolutely great. But let us transition on beyond the OnTheReel topic, but we're still sticking with The Last of Us because there's more Last of Us in the news. But before we move on, again, I will say once again, thanks you so much for being here. We're consistently over 100 people in here. This is a new standard for us, so we really appreciate everybody being here. Thank you guys so much. PTK appreciates it. He brought the people with him, so we appreciate you being here.
Hey,
PTK.
man, I do what I can do. I don't want to take no credit for that, man. This is
he
a
brought the
phenomenal
people.
show.
Yes, he did. He brought the people. So please consider hitting that like button. If you're new here, please consider subscribing to the channel. You'll be seeing more stuff like this on a weekly basis, and we'll be start throwing some tech stuff into the mix as well. But you know what? Let us transition into more talk, but more gaming related talk, because while I was looking at Naughty Dog and the great show and all of that, I also did catch this news story about Naughty Dog talking about potentially moving on from The Last of Us, and that they've already moved on from Uncharted. And I'm just like, what? In a world where you have AAA high budgeted platforms playing it safe, remake after remake after remake, not making new things because these are big AAA budgeted things, you would move on. Now, I will let
They're not talking about factions, are they? I would assume factions.
They just said Uncharted, and they just said they could do the same with The Last of Us. The Last of Us if they decide not to make part 3. Now, my question and my thought, and I want your opinion on this is: are they saying Naughty Dog specifically is moving on because Sony will just hand it to another studio and continue the story that way? Because they're doing that now with Horizon, right? A different team is making the VR version or whatever. Are they going to continue moving forward with the IP, The Last of Us and Uncharted, and then Naughty Dog will do something else? Or do you think they really mean, we've milked this till it's dry. We can't get any more water out of the stone. We're moving on to different IPs. What are your thoughts?
So just me personally, with just everything you said encompassing what we already know. We know Neil was working on he's doing something else. We don't know exactly what it is. He's making another game of some sort at Naughty Dog. I actually think that they feel like it might be time to go ahead and move on from Last of Us.
Sony proper.
And the only reason I'm saying the TV show is doing phenomenal. You can continue to do that. They didn't. When they mean video games, they don't mean we're done with the IP altogether in a video game space. Let's make sure we're clear on that. That doesn't mean we won't do other things with these IPs. So they could. I could see in a world where they're not making any more Last of Us games. They're done with Uncharted. Uncharted makes sense because outside of the factions, I don't understand. Or sorry, that's Last of Us. But outside of they haven't really. Uncharted's been out of the limelight for so long now. People still love the game, but there hasn't really been anything new outside of the movie, which actually did very well. I don't know if you saw the movie. The movie was
terrible. Even though it wasn't
it wasn't good. It did well, box office standpoint, but it wasn't a good movie at all.
So PTK Punty says milked it till it was dry. Pause. That's hashtag dry hole.
I don't know where they could go with it either franchise at this point. It makes sense for them to move on. You got the TV show that's hitting. You have enough source material from the video game.
I agree with you. I'm just surprised that a AAA a multi-billion-dollar platform holder and leader like Sony would take this game and this IP that's at a high and basically put it aside at a high. I think it's a good move. Don't get me wrong, because you don't want to milk it till it's dry. I get that, but I'm surprised that they're doing that. That's why I'm questioning. Is this Naughty Dog that's saying we're moving on, but then of course Sony will ship it to another? Or is Sony doing the right thing here and going, we've milked this till it was dry. We don't want to, diminish this brand,
I don't think they'd give either one of these franchises to anybody else. I understand your comparison. You mentioned Horizon. That's a completely different experience. VR, you need a team that's experienced making VR games. That's a whole different experience. I don't think you do that with Last of Us or Uncharted. I don't think you give that to anybody else to do. It's funny because we're talking about this and we just got done talking about Halo, and people have always said, well, give Halo to id, give Halo to Machine Games. You don't do that with these kinds of games. So you don't just hand these games off.
Real quick, I got Lucius Augustus in the chat putting together, I would say, the best message of this whole message, this whole thing. He said, white guy taking artifacts from other cultures is getting also kind of a tired old genre. People are over it. Oh, sir. This is why I love my show and I love my chat. Well put, sir. Well put.
We're breaking the fourth wall on that one for sure.
That's amazing,
right? But no, no, I just don't think that games of that caliber you hand off to anybody else. You know, Neil knows. I feel like Sony has a good idea. You know, they probably know. Okay, I feel like we're good here. I feel like we've done everything. We've told this story to the extent that we needed to tell it at this point. It's okay to move on. And to be honest, if we're Sony is transitioning to a different business model as well.
True.
Remember, let's not forget what the entire company is doing. Let's not forget
while everybody's throwing arrows at Microsoft, they're literally they're literally following the same footsteps.
So, yes. they have to, because the market is changing. Fundamentally changing. So you got to understand, Sony's going to shift towards what did they say? Sony didn't say we got 10 single AAA quality single player games.
They got 10 gas
games as a service game.
That's right.
So they're transitioning to a different business model. They're going to do a lot more multiplayer stuff. Listen, God of War is great. It's going to sell 20 million. Uncharted, The Last of Us, those are going to sell. We need to do something different. We need to get in on these games as a service. We need to establish ourselves in that area, because that's reoccurring income for us. We can stretch. I mean, they went out and spent $2 billion on Bungie.
True. Just
so they can kick the door down. They don't need to create their own game. They have something that they can use to kind of ease into that particular type of business model. But I think from that standpoint, on the top of those being legacy games, and you don't just hand them off, I think they're done with it at this point, unless somebody just randomly comes out and says, hey, let's do it. But I think that's okay. It's fine in my eyes. These games are, I don't know, when did Uncharted originally come out? What year?
Many years. Yeah, that definitely
many years ago.
PS3.
I would say PS3. And then same thing with Last of Us is PS3 as well, end of PS3. But still, it's about roughly 10 years old, 2000.
Absolutely.
Yeah, somewhere around that. So it's just it's been a length of time. The franchises have done extremely well. They'll go down as two of the greatest franchises in video game history. But I do think at some point you got to turn the page. And I do think right now is not a bad time, because, you got other things that you need to do at this point. They have other focuses.
I believe you. I completely agree with your take. I just think it's very surprising if it is Sony proper saying, okay, let's move forward. I'm very surprised and impressed that Sony would be willing to basically do away with the sacred cow, as it were, and move forward, because they recognize it's not, they don't want to, ruin it, like run it into the ground, if you will. So I think that's a good move.
And I want to say something in the chat too. Gamefire in the chat said, but live services is a difficult market to get into. There's more fairs than his, but you have to try. Sony hasn't tried.
Yep.
They have zero presence in that market at all, as far as a Sony, a Sony branded games as a service game, like an exclusive, something that's built from Sony from the ground up. They have a lot of third party, but you have to try. This is Sony trying. They're forced to at this point, because the market's changed. The rules to the game are different now. Game Pass came and threw a monkey wrench in all of the traditional business models that they used to stand by. So they have to do something different, but you have to try. And this is them trying. Them spending $2 billion is them trying. Them going out and saying the next 2 or 3 years is going to be an influx of games as a service games. You have to try.
Absolutely. No, I think you're absolutely spot on with that. And we shall see how their gas games work. It'll be an interesting place to be, because by and large, folks who have made Sony's service the tip of the spear as it is right now aren't gas games players. Nope, they are single player gamers. So what does this mean when Sony pivots to all gas all the time? Will that mean those gamers may not be happy?
That is a great question, Asante. Nobody's talking about. Nobody's asked it. Nobody's asked that.
It's an interesting place.
Said that. Yeah. Everybody's always said Xbox needs to do more what Sony, like Xbox needs to do Sony stuff. But what happens when the market flips and now Sony has to look over the fence and say, you know what are they doing over there? We got to try and do some of that stuff.
And
nobody ever asked that question.
And what happens to those militant gamers who are all about Sony proper everything when they look around and the first thing they see is more gas games from their favorite platform, which they're so against because Microsoft does that? Does that mean they all of a sudden get into gas games, or do they lose them as consumers? Who knows, right? It's an interesting time.
I mean, everybody that, like you said, there's a lot of people that, you know, because to be fair, that's what made Sony, that's what gave Sony the cachet, all those single player games. That's what built Sony. And
that's what got them where they are now. Yes.
But like you said, what's going to happen when you have to make that left turn and you're not getting the God of Wars as often. You're not getting, you know what I mean, those Last of Us as often. You're getting a couple games as a service games. Like, well, what is this? What's going to happen? Are those conversations going to change? Because people aren't asking these questions. We always look at things because, and it's fair, Xbox does need to do a lot, but sometimes we can look at these things from the other way around as well, especially when it comes to where the market is going. Because if we know one thing, Xbox, they are innovative. They are market disruptors. They've done it every single generation.
Sure, they have no choice but to do it. Yeah,
they have no choice to survive. They have to disrupt the market. Yeah. So what happens
because the thing that people want are the games, and if you can't provide that, you have to provide something else that makes you special as well. So you're absolutely right. Continue, sir.
No, I mean, that's essentially what I was just saying. Like, I mean, it's curious to ask that question from the other perspective. I'd like to hear your thought on what happens when the shoe's on the other foot, when, you know, Sony's announcing more games as a service like games than these single player games.
And I will tell you, as a person who goes to Sony specifically for the single player games, I don't like that, right? I don't like that. As we've already established, I'm a guy who's through by the reason of being a parent or whatever. I have to be a single player gamer. I cannot play the game that's the appointment viewing. You know, I'll be there at 5 o'clock. Can't do it because while we're gaming, I'll be just like you heard the noise go off. I'll be like, oh, give me a minute, and then my child. Oh, give me a minute, and my other child. Oh, that's what's gonna happen, right? Yeah. So for me, I enjoy the single player narrative driven games, right? What happens when I turn on my PlayStation 5 next year or 2 years from now and it's all gas games just like Xbox? That will be disappointing to me, right? But that's the reason why I am a subscriber of Game Pass. That's the reason why I'm now also a subscriber of PlayStation Plus Premium. So wherever these games happen to be, that's where I will be. Believe it or not, you know, people go, oh, you don't play consoles. I don't physically play my consoles as much as I do my PC because I tend to be in my office more. But I'm always playing with either a PlayStation controller or an Xbox controller. I never use a keyboard and mouse, right? And I enjoy the games from all sides. So I hope they figure it out, because if they do what they say they're going to do, which is basically make every game a gas game, they will most likely lose me, right? Because I buy the PS5 for that single player narrative driven game. So if I look on the PS6 and there's no single player narrative driven game there, I'm just sticking to Xbox, which is an unfortunate thing, I think. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think they'll still do the single player stuff because they know that's what built the brand. I still think you're gonna.
That's what brought them here, right? You got to dance with the person that brought you to dance, right? So
you can't deviate that far. Yeah, they have to do different things, but them injecting the games as a service games, trying, because they have zero shooters, they have zero multiplayer presence at all. Sony has gone so long without having shooters or any multiplayer. You know, focused games that nobody cares.
We've been saying we've been saying the acronym SOCOM for so long, and nobody has said anything else about that. Yeah,
nobody cares that Sony doesn't do that, and they don't. It's not that they don't do it good; they don't do it at all.
They don't do it at all.
Imagine if Xbox didn't do games as a service games at all. Yeah, if they didn't do games, it wouldn't they wouldn't even function. So to me, them having to go this route now. And I want to say it's just because Game Pass, that's part of the reason, you know what I mean? Cloud gaming, all these other things, stuff's more portable. You know, people have so many options. They're on the go now. So you have to be able to put things in more places. So all of that has to do, you know, lead me to believe that Sony going this route is going to be something that people are going to have to get used to. And it's going to be some uncomfortable conversations going to be had in them spaces on Twitter when you're looking up, you're like, that's a game as a service. That's a game as a service. That's a game as a service. Like, what are we? Because once again, it's gonna happen. Sony's already told you. Jim already said it.
I'm not looking forward to that world.
That 20 million that God of War sells is great. Yeah. It's phenomenal. But we need that reoccurring income. Yeah. That we gotta have that every month. We can't the one time big fat check. That's cool, but we need that every month. So I don't know. It's gonna be curious because the PlayStation fan base are gonna have to get used to that.
Yeah. So, and that's the question, right? Because there are those who are out there right now militant about how they like what Sony does and how they want them not to change. But by and large, Sony is projecting that they're changing. You know, and I like how Sony does what they do, right? I just wish they would be better stewards. They would be They would be less malicious with their they manipulate people to get what they want. And I don't think that's necessary, right? Because their offerings are good enough, in my humble opinion. Yes. But you know what? Thank you guys so much again for being here. I enjoy the chat is super lively. Our numbers have not dropped at all since we started this show. Thank you guys so much. Let us get to the meat and potatoes of this episode. Let's get into what we're here to talk about. Those who've been paying attention to this show for a while know that when I get excited, you'll see that reference in the thumbnail. And this week's thumbnail is literally the Xbox Direct, the Xbox Developer Direct. I was excited because they finally have something to show us, right? They finally have a format that I think by and large we all agreed with and thought was absolutely amazing. So let's talk a little bit about the old Xbox Developer Direct that we got a couple of days ago. And let's talk about the games that they were showing, right? So initially we were told that there'd be 4 games shown, right? That was the initial, and if you're looking at the graphic on the screen right now, it shows you those 4 games, right? You see Turn 10 right there with their Forza. You see Arcane Austin with Redfall. You see Mojang with Minecraft Legends, and then of course you see ZeniMax. You see ZeniMax Online with Bethesda. With what is it? Skyrim. Is it Skyrim Online? Elder Scrolls Online. Elder Scrolls Online. Yeah. And then, of course, at the last minute, they added Tango into the mix as well, and we saw the aforementioned the Hi-Fi Rush game. So before we even get into the content that they showed, how about the format? What did you think of the format, sir? Do you like this format? Is this the way they should go moving forward? Or what were your takes? Was this yay, or was this, oh, come on, they should have added more to it than just copying, I don't know, the Nintendo Direct formula or something. What did you think?
So this is a big yay. It's a big yay. I'm all for this going forward. I'm not the most critical gamer either. I'm a bit lenient when it comes to a lot of this stuff, because I understand, it's hard to do this stuff. It's hard to make these things and get it right. There's a lot of stuff that goes into a lot of thinking. You have to, try and
to win on their own.
But I think the format was perfect. It was concise. It was just 44 or 45 minutes. That's just long enough. It's just short enough as well. Not too long, not too short, to keep people's attention. You give enough time to each game. You got every game got about 7 or 8 minutes or so. I think what game was that? They got a little bit longer time. Might have been I can't remember one of the games showed a little bit longer, but that's fine. The format was.
I think Redfall showed a little bit longer than the rest.
Yeah, Redfall might have showed a little bit longer than the other 3, the other 4, but that's fine. It wasn't that big of a deal. You got to fill the time out, but I think the format's perfect. I love the fact that there were no hosts. Now I don't have an issue with the hosts, but in this particular, we didn't need hosts for something like this. We didn't need somebody in between each game coming out saying, "Did you guys see that? That was amazing." We didn't need that. You know what I mean? We didn't. It was not necessary. So them just having the devs come out, show their games, and the one thing I do want to say, and I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it, the editing was on point. Whoever edited all of this together, the way they edited, it was cinematic. It felt it was enough action. The way they edited it moved along. Everything kind of flowed into each other. There wasn't really a bunch of stagnant screenshots and we're sitting on this too long and okay, can we move on to the next thing? That didn't happen. But for this is what Xbox should have, and we talked about this, Asante. By default, they have more stuff to show. So we need more shows.
Yep, absolutely.
Right? 3-4 years ago, we didn't need this show because we didn't have 30 studios 3-4 years ago. We just have more content, thus meaning we need more shows to have. We just need more. So people were like, well, they don't need it. They do, because they just have more stuff to show. So having these a couple times, 2-3 times a year makes sense. Now, some people are like, are they going to do this every quarter? I doubt it. It's going to depend on where things are at on their calendar. So they don't need to do this every single quarter. If one of the quarters isn't as busy as the other one, maybe they don't have anything slotted in there, or they don't necessarily need this every quarter. But I love the format. They could keep everything as is. Obviously, the shadow drop, we probably not going to get that every time we get one of these. Wouldn't it be great if we got a shadow drop every time we got a delivery direct? That's probably not going to happen.
I don't think that's a needle they want to thread, because then they're going to be screwing themselves for later.
Exactly. You don't want to set that expectation that we're going to do this all the time. But it'd be great, in pie in the sky. But I love the show. I love the format. Like I said, I watched it. Shout out to to Fun Speculation of Mab. I was part of the panel while we were watching it.
Awesome.
And it was amazing. I enjoyed it. Like I said, everything flowed. The time flew by. Before you know it, we were already half an hour in. The format was perfect for me, bro. I didn't really know what they would do. Obviously, not having the host, I thought that was a big A+ right away. But I still didn't really know what it would look like. Like, how would they put this together? I wasn't even sure, to be honest, whether it would be pre-recorded or not. For a while, I was like, is it gonna be pre-recorded or is it gonna be something they just bring the devs out and cut to them live kind of thing?
Yeah.
So I'm actually glad it ended up being pre-recorded. That way you can edit this together and make it all pretty and, make it all flow together. So I'm great. I'm on board with this. I hope they continue to do this. I think even Phil was maybe pleasantly surprised. Like, wow, this actually did really well. He even said it in the interview. He mentioned like this was actually a hit for us. And so I think going forward, this is something that they'll definitely do. So I'm all on board. I think it was an A+. I love
Absolutely. Now let's hit some of the content that was on display here. I like that they initially started out with, oh, you're only getting 3, and then they kind of surprised you with, nope.
I love that.
You're only getting 4, and then they hit you with the 5th game, which is great. People were all itching for one more thing, and this really served to fulfill that for people, right? So we've already talked about Hi-Fi Rush. We love the game. We think the game is absolutely amazing. We're looking forward to it. I want to talk to you about the Elder Scrolls Online and how they keep trying to get people to play it. I think this time around was the best, like, trying to convince you, hey, if you haven't tried it, if you like Elder Scrolls, if you like Fallout, this is basic. If you like Skyrim, this is basically that, but with a lot more stories, and you can play it as a single player.
Okay.
What did you think? Yeah.
So I don't like people saying they're trying to get people to play it. That has a large community. Like it's not. Don't get me wrong. It's not like WoW at its peak or something. But it's a large, dedicated community.
Yep.
So I don't. People are saying that like it's some game that's
like
on,
it's a game that's on short shrift. Yeah. It's not.
And it's
Absolutely.
just trying to. It's not that kind of game. So I'm not. This is not.
Forgive my ignorance on the ESO platform, fam. But to your point, the fact that they keep putting ESO ads and trailers in new shows over and over and over again tells you that there's definitely a market for it, even if I'm not that market. Yeah, absolutely.
I 100% agree. I mean, they're going to continue to try and bring people over to that game, and as well as they should, and they will do the same with WoW when they get that all together. As you can see, the ramp up since the whole Blizzard Activision thing. But ESO is I'm not an ESO player. I'm be honest with you. I don't play ESO. But and it's funny because I might get into it based on that last bit of DLC.
This is what I was talking to you about. That's why I brought this up. It's made me want to install it. But continue. Yes. Go ahead.
It's one of them things where, and this is part of just me personally, everything lining up for me. And I told you earlier, Game Pass has turned me into this person. I would have never even bothered even thinking about ESO. So the blam now at this current point in time will definitely look at ESO completely different and go download it and actually give it a try. Maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, I probably wouldn't have done that. So they've done a great job, but I do want to just hearken on the way they put it out there in ESO in general. ESO, I know people, shout out to Centurion. There's a few other people that play it. Shout out to Blue. They play it religiously. And there's a heavy dedicated fan base. And the fact that they keep building on this game, there's much more to this game than people realize, Asante. And I think people don't understand. There's so much content. What they say, 20 DLCs,
20 DLCs. And by the way, that's not all the DLCs because the latest two are not included. So the one that's coming out that they were announcing, that's not included, and the one that just came out is not included. But besides those two recent ones, there are still 20 DLCs that are free, included for a short period of time. If you want to go and play with them.
That is insane. That's a large world, and so they need to highlight that because games like Elder Scrolls survive. That's how they make their bread and butter. So I'm just glad that that Elder Scrolls, and it's not we need to say something else too. That's Elder Scrolls Online is not a new game. Like this has been around for a long time,
5 years.
So to see that it's still getting updates consistently. It's one of the few games as a service games that continuously gets these updates. I love to see them always trying to inject new things into the game and bring new people.
There's a Series X version now. There's a Series X version. I didn't know that. So it's really, really enticing. It really is. I'm looking at the charts. There's a historical charts that I'm looking at right now. I just kind of looked it up real quick. It started with about 400,000 when it first started. It was about 100,000, and over like the course of like 2 months, it got to about 400K players. And at its height, in the middle of 2021 to half of 2022, it reached over 1 million players. And now it's averaging around 250,000 to 300,000 players. But that's because obviously they're playing the same content. After this announcement, you would imagine that diagram will start shooting back up again.
Yeah, it'll go back up.
I'm looking for. I be honest with you. I've tried it. I've rolled a couple characters, but I really have not put the time in that I really should have. Like I really haven't given it the time I would give like a new Elder Scrolls game or a Fallout game. And based on what they showed here, I kind of think it's time to do that. I kind of think, it might be time to really give Elder Scrolls a time.
We both might be going to Tamriel. We both might be visiting Tamriel soon.
Because usually these games always come with a separate subscription service, and that's always like kryptonite to me. I'm like, why would you make me buy the game and then subscribe for continued access to it? I just think that's always weird. And they just came out and said it right now. 20 DLCs. No subscription service. I tend to be a pixel peeper, so if it's a very old game, that's the reason why I can't really play WoW that much, because it's really old and it just doesn't look good.
Yeah, it's hard to look at. Yeah,
but they're talking about the Series X version. I'm like, hey, it might be worth taking a quick look at it. I'm genuinely convinced they have gotten to me at this point. They were trying to get to me. They have gotten to me with this announcement. So I think it's pretty cool. I will be most likely installing it as a grazer myself. Shout out to the Living Split Screen Gentleman. I will be most likely adding this to the rotation as well. But I think this was great. Now, to your statement about whether they should do this once a quarter, I think all things should be on the table here with this. I think as full-throated, as we've been, about how great we like this game, how great we like this format, I think that should then change their narrative in their heads to say, okay, this way of releasing these videos becomes part of our rotation because our consumer base enjoys it, right? So whether it be, and personally, I think all of that will matter more, and we'll see where all of that goes and crystallizes more once we see what they're doing at E3. If they're at E3 with another round of, hey, this is for the next 12 months again, then I think this is a very viable option where you have 12 months for E3, you have these small little shows showing you more details about what we've announced at E3, and then all I would then want is another kind of show that they haven't shown yet where they show us future-looking things. Yes. Right? That's what I want. Keep this cadence. Keep this format. Give us E3. If you say E3 is another 12 months, I am fine with that. But I want another show that says, okay, you have your Developer Direct, which shows you more meat on the bones. You have your E3, which shows you what you're going to be playing in the next 12 months. Here's a third type of show that may then come with your Paris Lily I'm
okay with that.
I'm good with that too. But then we show you what the coalition has been working on, and it's not going to come out until 2028. Then we show you what this person, there have to be shows for moonshots, shows for, hey, get excited because this is coming out in 4 years. There has to be shows for that. And it may not be E3, and it should not be this format, right? It should not be the Developer Direct format. I, by and large, agree wholeheartedly with you that this is the way they should go forward. I just don't know if they will, because they tend to overcorrect from time to time. They tend to overcorrect a little bit. You know what I mean?
Sometimes they don't make the obvious choice, right?
Even though they should, because everybody's saying, yeah, see what you did there? Yeah, more of that. And then they go, really? You want us to move the pendulum all the way that way? I'm like, no. We call that snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. They do that quite often, So
sometimes,
yeah. So I think it was a great show. I gave it an 8 out of 10. Upon second viewing, I gave it a 9.
Yeah, I was gonna say I bumped my score up to a 9. Mm-hmm.
The first view was 1080p. I was like, okay, this is good. I gave it an 8 out of 10. Second reviewing, saw it, loved it, thought it was a 9 out of 10. I've already talked about how I wish that with the Forza that they made more of an emphasis of the hardware that they were using, because that would really raise eyebrows that, hey, Series S is out here. We'll see where that goes, because they still have time to show it off in all of its forms. So, although I agree with Everborn, yes, the game is releasing day one on PC. Show us PC as well. I'm not saying that they shouldn't. So I gave it a 9 out of 10, and I want to see more consistency with this. But I'm really happy with what we saw here today. My last question to you, sir, and I think we'll round out the show with this last question here. Redfall. A lot of people have had questions about Redfall, right? Not only about what kind of game it is, not only about, they've had a lot of questions, about various aspects of it. And I was going to go into what people are talking about it socially and all that, but we can table that for another day. I just want to hear your thoughts on this game that they are pushing as their next big thing. Are you convinced? Did this convince you? Are you still looking at it and thinking the Left 4 Dead, or are you convinced? Are you on the other side of it? Or how are you doing with Redfall? Is this day one for you?
I was always day one. So and over at the Shop Podcast, we've all been day one. None of us have ever jumped off the tracks on Redfall.
So that means you worship at the altar of Arcane.
Absolutely.
I do. Yes. Okay.
So the one thing people got to understand about Arcane games, this is pretty standard the way people receive Arcane games. It happened with Deathloop. It happened with a lot of Dishonored to happen. Arcane tends to not get credit right away.
It's a slow burn.
Play the game, it marinates, and they're like, wait a minute, this is a good game. This is a phenomenal studio. I get it. That happens. Deathloop had the same discourse. What is this? Why does it look like this? What's going on? This is different for Arcane. Are we sure they can do this?
Yeah.
6 months later, it gets a Game of the Year nomination.
It seems like they don't benefit from the first release window. They're always the ones that get dogged in the release window, and then later on, people go, "This game prayed. This was our game. This is it."
Exactly. So I was just to get back to Redfall. I was always on board with it. They didn't do anything but reaffirm what I needed to see. I saw more than what I actually needed to see, because I had suspicion that this game was going to be far larger and far more layers than originally what people thought it was going to be, and originally what they showed, because we didn't have a whole lot to go off of. Now I get it. And me being a big looter shooter fan, me loving these different types of games, and Destiny's an amalgamation of a bunch of different type of stuff. Division is an amalgamation of a bunch of different type of games. It has RPG elements. It's a shooter. It's first person. There's some action in there. There's some grindy stuff in there too, like you would do in in other types of games, like a dungeon crawler. There's some of the I love these types of games that mix everything together. So it didn't reaffirm what I already suspected. Visually, the game looks amazing. I know the gunplay people were harking on that a lot. That's one of the issues I saw people having. I didn't see that. Now I don't know what type of gunplay people were expecting to see, and maybe it's just people's expectations individually. I thought everything looked tight. Some people were saying they didn't feel like the weapons had a lot of weight to them, but I think that
there was no recoil. I think Slow-Mo said that. I saw him say that there was a lack of recoil in the game, seemingly, when the guns are shot. But of course, we're seeing unreleased footage, so we don't know how that will look when it's all said and done. But yeah,
that's absolutely true. And I think too that goes to show you that you got to understand, it's not just, this is not a shooter. You have powers. There's a team aspect here. When you're playing with other players, you can combine powers. And I think when you get in the game and play it that way, you'll feel the weight of the weapons, and you'll understand why things may work the way they need to work, why the weapons may perform that way. So I think sometimes you need to get in and actually play. And I think this may be one of those experiences where you need to play to understand, oh, that's why the guns perform. This is not Doom. Yeah. She's not running around at 800 miles an hour. You know what I mean? I get there's powers and things, but this is not that kind of experience. You know what I mean? It's you can even play it stealth. I don't need to run around like I'm in a Sylvester Stallone video. If I can play it, I can do either or. So there's just a lot of different nuances to me that I think people just haven't bought into because we haven't played it. So I think when you do it in you actually go and play it and put all these things into action with other players, you might understand like, okay, this is why things are the way they are. So
no, I completely agree. 100% agree with you. And to your point that this is not a shooter, I think that tends to dog arcane games a lot. Like they wrap it in shooter clothes, and then people like think shooter, it is, right? Same thing that happened with Deathloop, right? People came to it as a shooter and went, the shooting isn't great, right? And it's not that. It's a people puzzle. That's what it was from jump, but it's in shooter clothes, right? And unfortunately for them, since it's in that frame, you will then judge it with the best of the shooters that are out there. And by that narrative, it'll never win that award.
Look at Call of Duty. Call of Duty has great guns. Come
exactly.
on, man. Like, what are we talking about? What are we talking about?
Whereas at the end of the day, that's not what they're there for. They're not there to be the best shooter. They're there to basically give you that environment, that physics puzzle, that world where you can attack these issues at any angle you want, guns blazing or stealth. You can take things, you can break the game in ways that they don't know, because they've set the rules to allow for unstructured thinking.
And it didn't look that bad. I know what bad, like you know what I mean? Like, I would definitely point it out or acknowledge that if it was that bad, if it looked that, and that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Now maybe, I know shout out to my boy Still Rain, my brother Still Rain. He had big issues. He's still not even on the fence at all with Redfall.
Yeah.
He's had big issues with the game and the shooting and the combat and everything.
Okay.
But like I said, I just feel like it's going to be one of them experiences when you get in a game, when you use the powers in conjunctions with the weapons, I think you'll start to feel more of the weight that they said it was missing.
Yeah, I hope so too. I'm waiting for the show the game to come out before I make my final verdict. I do see what Steele is talking about as far as the gunplay mechanics and that, but that comes from a studio that's really deep in FPSs and really deep about the moment to moment gunplay, which Arcane is not. Right? They're about, okay, here's your issue. Are you going to attack it by entering through the front gate? Are you going to go through the back gate? Are you going to enter through the balcony? Are you going to be guns blazing? Are you going to take a sniper pole position and shoot? They're about allowing you to attack a problem in multiple angles, right? That's what they're about. And unfortunately, the side effect of that is the multiple angles you attack them, some will be melee focused, some will be shooter focused, but they don't necessarily have to be the best melee artist or the best first person shooter artist to deliver what you need to see from that, right? So you have to really look at it from a more holistic perspective when you're looking at arcane games. But I 100% agree with your takes. I've always been on Redfall day one, and nothing here has changed my mind. Yeah. The question I do want to know, and maybe you can give me the answer to that, and this will be the last question, and we'll just close up the show now. Will you be, and I think I asked you this on the show before, and I've done a little bit of research in the background. I still haven't gotten a clear, concise answer. Like, is this a game where you can roll a character, come into the world all by yourself, and it looks like it is, because I'm seeing some of the themes where you're walking in by yourself and the other characters aren't with you. So presumably you can just roll your character and then walk through this entire game, play and beat this entire game solo with no co-op next to you, whether it be AI co-op or people co-op. You could just do this whole thing by yourself, which is very interesting. I think it's interesting because they originally built it as a single player game. Remember that? Yes.
They didn't do the multiplayer stuff till later on
until later. See, but the reason why I think that's super interesting is because every time they talk about the co-op aspect of it, they talk about it in a way of, hey, you see your special move. If you combine it with your friend's special move, it makes it even better. Right? Yeah. So it's like they're incentivizing you to play it in co-op and giving you reasons to want to bring the two powers to bear. But how do they do that if you can play the entire game solo? Right.
That's a good question. I mean, and that's something that they're going to have to balance.
That's what I want to know. I want to understand.
I actually think it'll be that difficult of a problem. You know what I mean? I think a lot of it has to do with the way you set the story up. The way you go about introducing the characters. It's okay. His other games do it. Yeah. Other games have multiple characters that you don't.
The reason why I say that, exactly to your point, it's because of Gears 5, right? Gears 5 wants you to have all of them with you at all times. So whether you're playing by yourself or with people, you have all of them with you at all times.
The AI and everything.
Yes. It looks like here they incentivize you for having all of them with you, but if you don't, they let you be solo. I wonder what they've done to compensate for that solo play, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
That's where I want to know. That's what I want to know. I want to see what they've done to say, yeah, it's cool to play with multiples, but if you're by yourself and you only have this one power cell, you can still be, doing what you do and not feel like you're missing anything.
They've had to figure that problem out the other way around because they started out just play,
as
with
the game
being a single
player
game.
Yeah,
so they've had to figure out how do we implement other people, allowing other people to play this game. They've already figured out the single player problem. So you already have your answer.
Thought. That is a good thought.
You already have your answer. They had to figure out how are we going to allow other people to play? How is this going to be co-op?
You are definitely onto something. You are onto something. Yeah, because they built it as a single player first game. So then the incentive of adding more players to the mix with the powers and integrating it was the incentive to get you to play it multiplayer because it works as a single player by itself.
It works as a single player already. Yeah,
I see what you're saying. Interesting. Yeah, that's a good thought. I didn't think of it that way, but yes, absolutely. Very, very interesting times with this game and Xbox and all of that. And believe it or not, I'm looking forward to seeing PlayStation. Like I haven't seen any kind of events from them. I want to see some great stuff from them because Xbox is out here competing. I want to see what PlayStation's going to do, and not just the second and third party stuff. Yes, I know Stellar Blade is coming up. A buddy of mine, every time I say Stellar Blade, he says Stellar Yams, and I know why. I understand. I get that the third parties are coming is going to be great, but I want to see what their first parties have to offer besides Wolverine that's coming in 2024 and besides Spider-Man, which is probably coming in Christmas maybe, who knows. But I want to see some stuff coming in, new and fresh. And I won't go into the tirade that I was going to go into about Forspoken, but let's just say Forspoken is not it. Forspoken is not it. I will still play it. I'm planning on playing it. For those who aren't aware, it is in the Windows Store day one with Xbox achievements. So I'm definitely I want to play it and see what they look like, see what that weird integration is, because by and large you are not going to get an actual proper Xbox copy of that game for 2 years, but they were able to implement achievements into the system day one if you're playing it on the Xbox Store. So I will play it at some point, and I will share the probably horrible gameplay footage with you guys when we get there. But okay, we are at the end of this episode, and yes, I lost one co-host. I will go reach out to him after it's done. He said, again, for those who are wondering where he went, he got some bad news on the phone, and he had to quickly go and address that. So I hope he's doing well. We will definitely be reaching out to him, and I'm sure he'll be all right. You'll see him on the Twitter streets being as slanderous as usual. But shout out to EverbornSaga. Send him a message. Let him know we're thinking about him. But yes, Mr. PTK Blam of the Shop Podcast, considered by me and many to be required viewing for any of these gaming conversations. Sir, I appreciate you for being here. I am so apologetic that it took me so long to get you here. And I want you to tell the fine people where they can find you and what they should be doing every single Saturday evening to make sure they get all their gaming discussions properly. Tell them where they can find you on the Shop Podcast, sir. Thank you.
Well, first and foremost, I want to say thank you and Everborn for being gracious hosts and, being honorable and reaching out to me and allowing me to come on the podcast, man. Like I said, I don't get a lot of time, but it's Saturday morning. I watch you guys anyway, and it's just awesome to be on the show. And I will be doing it. So anybody listening that got a podcast in chat, I'll be doing this more often. So my DMs are open. Reach out to me this year for sure. I'm going to try to give back and be in more, podcasts and do different things. So people could see a little bit more of me around, different podcasts. But thank you for inviting me on. I had a ball, bro. It was a phenomenal show. Shout out to Everborn. I do hope all is well with him and his family. So prayers and thoughts going forward, whatever it may be. Yeah. But you can find me and the fellas. Shout out to Pong, my two co-hosts, Pong and Fuzz. They make me look good every Saturday. So we'll be back later on today at about 6 p.m. AZ time. That's 8 p.m. EST. Come check us out at the Shop Podcast. Every single week we got somebody on different. Sometimes it's just us three rocking out. Been doing it for a while, man, but we have a great show. Pretty straightforward. Asante's been on the show many times now at this point. So come check us out, man.
Make me feel even worse about having you not on the show until now.
Oh, no.
Been on the show. I've been on his show like 3-4 times, and this is the first time I have him on. See, I feel like a horrible human.
Good,
horrible human.
Good.
Horrible human.
That wasn't to make you feel bad, Asante. That was really just letting the people know, giving some context. But it's all good, bro. But like I said, at the end of the day, you guys do me a favor and just tweet this out Show love to Asante and Everborn. They do a phenomenal job. They show a super high quality. Do them a favor. Show them the proper love and respect that they deserve for putting on a great show every single Saturday. So I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much, and I'd love to be back sometime soon.
Oh, brother, you know that the bat signal is going to be out for you whenever you need it, sir. I appreciate you being here. This is great. You have me on your show. As I've said before, I was an avid watcher before I even picked up the mic. I've always been in your chats, as I have in some of these other gaming community podcasts. So I appreciate you for being here, man. And we will definitely have you back more often. I always end up feeling badly for those who are not in my time zone because I'm like, waking this person up to get on an 8 a.m. podcast.
Good, like, it's all good.
You know, same thing with the folks in Australia. I always feel so bad. And shout out to Doom Cutie, who was on last week, who also was here like at the butt crack of dawn, you know, trying to be on the show with us. But we definitely appreciate y'all for being here. We appreciate you, sir, for being here. All of his information will be in the show notes when this thing posts live. All of the information should be there. If you're not subscribing to the Shop Podcast, you definitely should be. I'm always in their chats, and sometimes I don't see enough folks in there. If you're in here and you're still enjoying this gaming talk, please do yourself a favor. Subscribe to the Shop Podcast. Go to PTK Blam's channel and subscribe to it because we want to see a lot more of the same kind of gaming conversations we have here in our chats, in PTK's chats when he goes live. At what is it, 8 o'clock Eastern? I'm terrible with time zone. 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 9 o'clock GMT. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it's EST. Well, I'm in AZ. The time is all funky.
Yeah, I know.
It's the only state where our time doesn't change. So
yeah.
It's all over the place depending on what month it is.
Follow PTK Blam on Twitter and make sure so that when he's going live, you definitely will be able to see when he's going live. So I appreciate you for being here, good sir. Any last words before we end the show?
No, it was great, man. I'd love to do it again sometime soon, man.
I appreciate you, and we will definitely have you back, of course. And as for me, thank you guys again for being for being here, being in the chat. We still have a whole bunch of people still talking. There's a whole bunch of people still watching live. I will be on Go Live, Game On Daily's Go Live with Gaz today. So you can catch me there as well. You know we're going to get slanderous. You know, we're not as PG-13 on Gaz's show as we are here, but we're going to have some fun. You know, he invited me on, and anytime the bat signal is sent out, you know, I'm there to represent. So I appreciate him sending me that invite. For those audio listeners, thank you guys again. We are growing. There's been some growing pains. There's been some technical issues here and there. I've heard from folks hit me in the DMs that some of the audio was not great on the last show. I apologize for that. We're working on it. Onward and upward. We'll make sure we're getting it better. So please consider hitting the like button on this show while it's live. Consider hitting subscribe if you haven't done so. Consider leaving a review on the audio podcast when it goes up. I know a bunch of folks are checking it out. So please let others know how great it is so they can check it out as well. And we appreciate everyone for being here. For myself, for Mr. EverbornSaga, check out the EverbornSaga.com and make sure you help him continue to fulfill the man's dream. We're heading closer and closer to the new books coming out. So please go to EverbornSaga.com. I think he's still doing his deal with $50 and you catch up all the books up until now. So you catch up on the story so far. He's got a new book coming out. He also has a game coming out that continues the story that has been established so far. So if you check out the books that he has right now, you'll be ready for the next steps and ready for the game. So we appreciate him for being here. Shout out to everybody in the chat who are still leaving messages and notes. Shout out to all the super chat leavers. I'm still not used to that. It's a new world we're in right now. But we appreciate everybody for being here. For PTK Blam, the great one of the Shop Podcast, and myself, we say thank you guys for being here, and we will see you guys next week.